Welcome to the IDP Plus Advice Show. Today we're going to be looking back at Week 11, snap counts, defensive player alignments, injuries for IDPs, waivers, etc. And even maybe some trade targets may come up during the discussion. So that's where we're going to go. And I'm your host, Ricky Rodriguez. You can find me on X at RickyRod66. I am joined this week and thrilled to have him back with us as we record this here on Tuesday, November 18th. Shawn Teague is with us again. Shawn, you can find us Shawn8386. Welcome back to the show, my friend. Glad you didn't have kid conflicts this time.
Yeah, it's been a while. We got lucky. They played the game during school hours, so freed up the nights. This probably is the last one I'll be here for this season. But if that changes, I'll be back. If not, then I'll be lurking in the shadows.
All right, and of course you'll be there for the Start Sit show as well on Sunday mornings for sure. All right, as always, if y'all don't mind, give us a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Of course, if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please put them in the channel. We have incorporated several of them, including, while not my favorite thing to do because there's so much variation in leagues, we do have some free agents to discuss at the end of the show for potential pickups and all. So we will cover that at the end as well. All right, Shawn, you ready to get into this thing?
I'm ready.
All right, let's do it. Let's start off with the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East here. And Shawn, you got timestamps, right?
I got you, man. I'm on it.
All right, cool. All right, the Bills played 71 snaps. And last week we talked about the fact that Michael Hoyt and Landon Jackson went on IR. Shockingly, though, both Greg Russo's and Joey Bosa's snaps counts actually came down against the Bucs, and this wasn't really a blowout game per se. Of course, their IDP stats followed along with that. Now, A.J. Epinesa was back and played about half of the snaps as well. Javon Solomon got some snaps, but the one interesting thing that I want to point out to folks, one of the beat writers from the Athletics shared that T.J. Sanders actually played a decent amount of snaps, particularly early in the game on the edge, so he became like that fourth defensive end. Not someone we're picking up necessarily, but if something happens that increases with his defensive tackle eligibility, could be something to keep an eye on there. Terrell Bernard, holy cannoli. I don't know why I went with holy cannoli, but that's where it went, Shawn. He actually had 11 freaking tackles. Matt Milano was down back to 72% of the snaps, 7 tackles. Dorian Williams, 39%. At the defensive tackle position, we had Deion Walker jumping back to number 2 in snap percentages ahead of Larry Ogunjobi. He had 5 tackles in total. And by the way, when I'm talking about tackle counts during the show, in most cases, I'm not splitting between solos and assisted. I'm just combining those two together. Teron Johnson returned, played 73% of the snaps, basically all of those in the slaughter box. Christian Benford also returned. Tre'Davious White and Maxwell Hairston rotate on the outside. So for those that have rookie fever and all, it's not quite there for Hairston. Cole Bishop, he just continues to improve, looks so much better. 96% of the snaps, 49% deep. He continues to be in that 45 to 55% range of deep snaps. We can live with that, particularly the way he is playing. Jordan Poyer only played 82% of the snaps, but he had 15 tackles to lead the team. Shawn, Jordan Poyer, are we trusting Jordan Poyer? Is he someone worth picking up?
In deep leagues, I'll take that shot, but with him being kind of surpassed by Cam Lewis last week, it still makes me a little nervous that, maybe next week it could be back to that. So deep league, yeah, take that shot. Shallow league, you probably have somebody better already.
And then back to Matt Milano. Does this one game mean we're going to start trusting him, or we're still treating him as a low-end 3, high-end 4 linebacker?
Yeah, again, this is a deep league play, more desperate than anything. Yeah, he's just not playing a solid starter set of snaps, and his production hasn't been the greatest. Dorian Williams is still rotating with him some. He's actually eating up a bunch of tackles when he's in the game, so it's hard to trust either one of these guys full time. So if you're in a really deep league where you're in linebacker 4 or 5, stuff like that, you take that shot. Outside of that, no.
All righty, let's move to the Dolphins, who played 67 snaps versus the Commanders. Bradley Chubb, once again, was at that 78% snap mark, second week in a row since the Jalen Phillips trade. Unfortunately, though, he's not given us those big plays. He's only had 1 sack in his last 6 games, 2 in his last 8. I went and checked that out just to make sure. Matt Judon, second in snaps on the edge at 57%, but you have to look way down the list to see any stats from him. Chop Robinson hit my prediction. I said he'd be in that roughly 55 to 60% range, and that's exactly where he ended up. I also talked about he'd probably be sack dependent. He got 1 assisted tackle and 1 quarterback hit. So that's what I think we can expect from him. Jordan Brooks, 20 freaking tackles. Amazing what he is doing. Leading the league in tackles right now. #1 IDP linebacker, having one hell of a year. Tyrell Dodson also had 11 tackles, and he added a sack to boot, which was great. At the safety position, it's a mess. You've got an Ashton Davis, Dante Trader kind of 3/4, 1/4 rotation. Melifonwu playing about half the snaps as a third safety. Nothing to chase around there. Jason Marshall is their slot cornerback, but he had to once again move outside for the second week in a row because of injuries. And Minka Fitzpatrick ended up playing a decent amount of snaps in the slot as a result of the Jason Marshall having to go outside. Minka playing in the slot. You feel better about him or worse about it? Worse about him in that role, particularly when 42% of his snaps were in that slot position.
Yeah, it's about the same because he was playing fairly close to the line already. In the slot, it's probably about where he was. So about the same. He's the only one I trust out of this defensive backfield right now, outside of Rasul Douglas if he's healthy.
Okay. And as a reminder, the Dolphins do have a Week 12 bye. So those of you that have been, or those of us, I should say, that have been relying on either Brooks or Terrell Dodson or what the heck just happened?
Minka's about it. Yeah, outside of those two, it's Minka, Rasul Douglas when he's healthy. Unfortunately, guys like Zach Sealer that we relied on years past defensive tackle leagues has done nothing this year. So he's been a bust for us. So outside of those two linebackers, Minka Fitzpatrick's about it. So guess Ricky's having some technical difficulties, but yeah, outside of those guys, it's hard to trust anybody going forward. Look elsewhere, but yeah, week 12, those guys being on the bye, that really hurts us coming up this week. So I guess Ricky's out for a minute. If that's the case, I'm going to jump on to New England, who played 57 snaps against the New York Jets. Now, Christian Ellis was injured. He was out again this week. Means Jack Gibbons came in, took the #2 role, 51%. Had 6 tackles, filled in very nice for us. More of a deep league play. It's hard to trust at just 51% of the snaps. Robert Spillane's still the top dog here. I believe he led the team with 9 tackles. Hey,
That
Ricky's
is
back.
correct. And I'm back. My system did something really strange, folks. It was possessed for a second, so I apologize for that. So picking up with the Patriots, where Shawn was, Gibbons played 51% of the snaps. Mapu only 2%. Jelani Tavai was up to 37%. So Gibbons only played 51%, given in that second linebacker role, which has been a trend and so forth. Christian Ellis may be back, which will make Jack Gibbons unusable. And Christian Ellis, once again, it's quite a bet when he's only playing 55% of the snaps. On the edges, Howard Landry and Kelvon Chason continue to be boom or bust kind of situation, with Chason having been bust in particular this past week. Now, in the interior defensive line, the big news there was Milton Williams got hurt fairly early in the game, and he got diagnosed with a high ankle sprain and has already been put on IR. Christian Barmore's snap count jumped all the way up to 81% as a result. He had 3 tackles, 1 sack, 3 quarterback hits. So, 2 quarterback hits. So, a really nice game. If Barmore is going to get that kind of snap count, Shawn, I think he is someone that we can start maybe playing in defensive tackle league. We might mention him in the waiver wire list a little bit later in the show.
Yeah, there's not many defensive tackles to target, but he's definitely up on that list.
Right. And the backups are not worth targeting, whether it be Corey Durden, Tonga, who plays a little bit fullback, et cetera. Not chasing any of those. I know a lot of people always ask about this. Jalen Hawkins plays 68% deep. Craig Woodson only played 41% deep, but we've seen those two fluctuate, and it could be slightly different. And Woodson usually often plays more than just 41% deep, so it's hard to trust those Patriots defenders. And remember, they only played 57 snaps this week, folks, so that clearly had an impact on a lot of these IDP stats for the Patriots. As a reminder, they have a Week 14 bye. So we need to keep that in mind. Let's move to the New York Jets now, Shawn. And the Jets had 66 snaps against the Patriots. Jermaine Johnson's snap count came down from the 80s to 66%. Will McDonald came down to 61%. And not surprisingly, Will McDonald did not repeat his 4-sack performance. We've
What?
talked about it a lot. I know what. I mean, yeah. McDonald is going to be boom or bust. More often going to be bust than boom. You know, Michael Clemens was second, actually had a few more snaps than Will McDonald as a side note at 64%. At the linebacker position, wow, this was interesting. You may recall that week before last, Quincy Williams was told and he acknowledged to the press that he had been benched and it was going to be Mawagoa who was going to replace him, Kiko Mawagoa. Well, Mawagoa did not get through the concussion protocol, so they said, well, we're still going to bench Quincy Williams, and they put in Mykal Walker. After watching Mykal Walker play about 29% of the snaps, they said, oh, no, this won't work. So they threw Quincy Williams back in there. He had a hell of a game, and we did not know what to expect this week with Mawagoa back. You know, and as it turns out, they left Quincy Williams in the starting lineup next to Jamian Sherwood. Mawagoa only played 23% of the snaps in the number 3 linebacker role that he was doing earlier this year before Quincy Williams got hurt. Shawn, is Quincy Williams going to start again this coming week next to Sherwood?
Yes. I think he's earned his spot back. That may have just been a one-game thing, just a motivational top play by the coaches. It looks like he's earned it back. If he didn't lose it this past week with Malgoa back, then I think he sticks. He stays.
Okay. Now, the safety position, both Tony Adams and Malachi Moore played 100% of the snaps, with Adams 50% deep. Moore was only 36% deep. You wouldn't have known that by his stat line necessarily. And he was down. The week before, they used Moore quite a bit in the slot, but he only spent about 20% of the snaps in the slot, though he still played a lot near the box, near the line of scrimmage. So Moore is a rookie. He's not Brian Branch, as we've talked about in previous shows. Not someone that we're chasing. Now, Jarvis Brownlee is someone in cornerback required leagues that he will come up in the waiver list a little bit later as well. He's playing in that Dax Hill type of role, as I like to call it, where he plays on the outside in two cornerback situations, 2 wide situations, and then is moving to the slot when they go to 3 wide. He ended up with 8 tackles this past week. And that was on 91% of the snaps in total. So Brownlee's someone that's interesting. Brandon Stevens is a Jalen Jones from last year, particularly with Sauce Gardner gone. He got targeted 8 times or several times during this game and ended up with 8 tackles. Shawn, do you agree with my assessment on Malachi Moore?
Yeah. I mean, he's obviously no Brian Branch. I would like to see his tackle numbers jump up. He is playing a little more in the box now, so if he can really pick up these last few games, he might be a very sneaky piece going into the playoffs. But we're going to have to see it first. So until then, it's hard to trust him.
All righty, let's move to the AFC Central, Shawn, and we're going to move to the Baltimore Ravens, who only had to play 56 snaps against the Browns. So when you have Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders as your quarterbacks, and you're playing a much healthier defense, that might happen. And so 56 snaps is not going to get you your typical IDP stats, and we'll talk about that here shortly. As a reminder, on average, about 65 snaps is what a team defense should be playing on a week-to-week basis. 56 is on the lower end, so you're basically losing about a quarter of stats. And then when it's becomes a little bit of a blowout late in the game, then it'll be even worse because some of your starters will be sitting out. But Draymond Jones, for the second week in a row, basically played 60% of the snaps since they acquired him from the Titans. You may recall I talked about the fact that he was playing 85-ish% of the snaps in his last few weeks with the Titans, that as that snap count came down, as I expected it would, and it did, his IDP stats would come down, and sure enough, that's what's happening. Mike Green, 68% of the snaps, kind of leading the edge group, but he barely hit the stat sheet. Just you had to scroll way down the Ravens list to see anything. Van Noy was back down to 52% as I expected. He did get a sack. David Ojabo did jump up a little bit to 34%, a little bit more than I expected, but that's probably going to be his high water mark for the rest of the year. Travis Jones was up higher again in snap count, all the way up to 79%. So he had been in the high 60s, low 70s, now all the way up to 79%. That's over a 5-game period. It just has continued to increase. Shawn, how do you feel about Travis Jones for in defensive tackle required leagues? More of a defensive tackle 2, or is that too high for him? You see him as a defensive tackle 3?
He's at some low 2 numbers. He's in that area. I think, but it's a lower end too. Yeah, I think that's fair with some of the production he's hit.
Okay. Roquan Smith played 100% of the snaps, but only had 4 tackles. Very disappointing. Teddy Buchanan, speaking of disappointing, his snap count did sneak back up from 59% up to 68%, but that was only on 56 snaps, as we talked about. So he only had 3 tackles, a quarterback hit, a pass defense. Shawn, I do want to talk about Teddy Buchanan as well. That snap count was really falling off as the Ravens have gone to this 3 safety alignment and moved Kyle Hamilton close to the line. Can Buchanan be trusted in starting lineups where you have to play 3 linebackers, or do you need 4 to play him?
No, it's 4 and more for me. It's too volatile with that low a snap number, and just with no production there to counteract that low amount of snaps. He's not getting super efficient tackle numbers right now. And like you've said in the past, this new look is 3 safeties. Kyle Hamilton is more of the second linebacker now, where he's eating up all those snaps. He's playing way closer to the line of scrimmage. So that's the shift we're seeing. This defense is now making his value go up quite a bit. And to counter that, it's Buchanan that's taking that hit.
Yep. Now, Kyle Hamilton, his stats were fantastic this past week with 9 tackles, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, 2 pass defenses. So that was phenomenal. We hadn't seen that even with this better alignment over the previous 2 weeks. Is this the start of a trend, or is this because it was against the Browns? I think the answer might lie somewhere in between. I think the answer's going to lie. Keon Martin, by the way, ended up playing the slot cornerback role with Marlon Humphrey, and that's what we talked about in last week's show. But they only used him on 32% of the snaps. The Browns used a lot of 2 tight ends with Fannin and Njoku. As we've talked about, hard to get that third cornerback on the field if there's not a lot of 3 wide, which the Browns don't play a lot of 3 wide. So that's what happened with him. If Humphrey is out, and unfortunately I don't remember who the Ravens play, if you're going to take a gamble on Martin, make sure they're playing a lot of 3 wide at the cornerback position.
Okay. Keep an eye on the injury reports. I want to say Martin got dinged up in there somewhere. I don't remember quite what the injury was, so just something to look out for this week.
Good call out. I did not see that, so good call out, Shawn. Thank you. Moving to the Cincinnati Bengals, who played 65 snaps versus the Steelers, so right on average. Trey Hendrickson was out again, and he's already listed as doubtful for this coming week. At least that's what the coaches said. Just put the guy on IR, man. I know they gave him that bonus or that raise or whatever, so they're not going to put him on IR. And if he's healthy come week 16, but in the meantime, we're stuck with him filling a roster spot because we can't put him into IR slot, which really sucks.
How many times have we seen these guys hold out wanting more money, and the season just falls apart? Nick Bosa took forever. Yeah, I mean, it's offense and defense. Look, Terry McLaurin, sat out for a while, and he's done nothing. He's been hurt. He's been in and out. I mean, it's just every year. Juwan Jennings, Brandon Ayuk. It's every year. The guys that hold out. I don't know.
Years ago. Exactly.
I don't know if it's karma or what. It's just not good. not good.
Yeah, I tried traded Hendrickson and nobody wanted him because of the holdout situation. Nobody wanted to take the chance.
Right.
And the fact that he was also 31 years old, which is another factor against him, or he'll be turned 31 here in December. Shamar Stewart also went on IR. So, you know who led the edge slash defensive end for the Cincinnati Bengals in snap count, Shawn?
You're making me think.
Miles freaking Murphy.
Oh well, not Joseph Osai. All right.
Joseph Osai. Miles
Why
Murphy
not?
had 89%.
Why
Osai
not?
was at 69%. Now, when you have someone playing that many snaps, there's a chance that they could get some volume based stats. And Cam Sample was also hurt during the game. So they also had Cedric Johnson, and that was really about it. Now, I could see him bringing up Isaiah Foskey from the practice squad for this coming week. So maybe Murphy falls down to that 80% range. But Shawn, in deep leagues, could Murphy be a volume-based number 3 defensive end slash edge?
If they're going to be on the field this much, and if he can actually generate some stats, yeah, it could be a sneaky play. But I want to see it again. Right now, it's just 1 week, so it's enough to get excited about and kind of keep an eye on, but not enough to run out and pick up just yet.
Yeah, and the numbers were great with 7 tackles, a sack, and a couple of quarterback hits. So maybe finally the light bulb is going off, but
Well,
we don't want to run too quickly.
that
We're
that
certainly
off
not spending all our fab on it for sure.
for sure. That offense they were playing weren't exactly known for getting very deep down the field either. So a lot of run plays, a lot of 2, 3 tight end sets, a lot of stuff up near the line. So those tackles are a little easier up front there.
Yeah, that's a great call out. Matchups are so important when we're looking at these things. Okay, since I trolled McKinley Jackson a couple of weeks ago, and if he ever saw me in person, he'd probably sit on me and kill me. But he asked to be traded after playing all of 6 snaps all year and hadn't done anything. They bumped him up to 25% of the snaps, which was 16 snaps, and he came through with a whopping 2 assisted tackles. Okay, I just had to
I
kind of
mean,
troll that.
that's what the people have been waiting for. Just 2 assisted tackles. That's pay that man his money.
He's earning his keep. Yeah,
There you
whatever.
go. Those
All
tackles
right,
won't assist themselves.
moving to the linebacker spot for the Bengals, Barrett Carter did play 100% of the snaps and got absolutely trucked by Darnell Washington.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure that he got the license plate when Washington ran him over, but he only had 4 tackles in 1 solo. And it was reported that he missed at least 4 tackles, Shawn. And before I'll let you comment, let me just hit the rest of the linebackers. I'll let you talk about all the Bengals linebackers. Demetrius Knight was all the way down to 50%. After he had been in the high 70s to high 80s range, he only had 2 tackles. Oren Burks played 57% of the snaps as well, the same exact amount that that Demetrius Knight played. And he in that time frame actually tied for the team lead in tackles. So Shawn, what is your take on this Bengals linebacker core? Do we have anything to worry about with Carter, who we've been relying on for 100% of the snaps?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of talked about this a little bit on Sunday during the Start Sit show, where I was off of Carter on a lot of the questions, and a lot of the choices there. I was kind of steered away from him, which I just didn't like the matchup. And I believe we discussed the whole will Warren Burks kind of work his way in there, and that was the case. And Demetrius Knight was the one I was more concerned about, just with him already being the lesser of the two between him and Carter. So I expect this to continue with Burks getting more playing time. It's going to hurt these rookies in the immediate future, especially for IDP. But from a football perspective, Orrin Burks is the better of the 3 right now, I think. And so, unfortunately, it's going to kind of hurt everybody a little bit.
Yeah. And Oren Burks had 9 tackles on only 57% of snaps. So he has tended to be a hyper efficient
Mm-hmm.
IDP player. There's a difference between IDP and true football, but he does make the tackles, which is something both Carter and Knight have struggled with. So we do expect to see more Burks and is someone for the waiver wire to keep an eye on, which we'll talk about later. Jordan Battle did not get benched as I was, maybe it was secretly hoping as opposed to thinking would really happen. um, he did have 7 tackles. Geno Stone played 100% of the snaps and had second on the team with 8 tackles. So both of them played basically their normal amounts. Shawn, do you follow Annie Agar, Agar on X?
Yeah, but I haven't watched her last skits, so I am a bit behind on that.
Yeah, so
She's usually pretty good.
I don't know her. She wouldn't know me if I was standing right next to her, but her stuff is freaking awesome. So if you don't watch her recaps of her interviews of teams, it's some hysterical. So shout out to Annie Agar. She has a great Geno Stone comment this week. I'll just leave it at that and have y'all go and watch it after y'all watch this show. Don't stop watching this show now. All right, let's move to the Browns. 61 snaps against the Ravens. Carson Schlesinger, even if he's still got that ankle sprain, still playing phenomenal. Devin Bush at 92%. Diabate all the way down to 16%. He was not the number 3. Jerome Baker was number 3. We're not playing either one of those. Myles Garrett, 4 freaking sacks. Amazing. 15 total for the year. Has a chance to break the record for a single season in sacks, which is quite amazing, Shawn.
Yeah, he has 10 the last 3 games.
I believe that's what the
That's yeah. I think it was 5 sacks, 1 sack, then 4. Yeah, that's insane production. This is why you draft him as high as you do in IDP drafts. You set him and
That's
forget
why
him.
you never bench him.
Yeah, you don't bench him. You set him and forget, because when he's only getting half a sack or just a tackle or two, it's because he was being triple teamed, or they were just doing everything they could to keep him at bay. And then you turn around and get a game like this. So
And that was against Lamar Jackson as a side note. So that wasn't just, Shadur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel.
yeah,
His own teammates
I wonder how many he gets in practice. It's got to be 12, right?
in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Alex Wright was out with a quad injury, and Alex Wright has been doing some nice stuff, but unfortunately he was out. Isaiah McGuire played 67% of snaps. We're not chasing Isaiah McGuire. Mason Graham had a solid game. Grant Delpit blitzed again 11% of the time. He did not get to the quarterback, and unfortunately only had 4 tackles. But with that kind of blitz rate, you still got to play him. Ronnie Hickman with 9 tackles. Ronnie Hickman plays a lot of deep safety, but that's why Delpit plays so much close to the line of scrimmage. So Hickman, are we going to start chasing him because of some of these periodic boom games that he has, or are we still staying away from Ronnie Hickman, Shawn?
Yeah, I'm still staying away from him. In fact, I stay away from Delpit too. Actually, I dropped him weeks ago for, gosh, I can't even remember whatever flavor of the week it was at safety that week, and it didn't bother me, when he does blow up. But too many games like this, just 4 tackles, just not enough production. Same thing with Hickman. They're both very up and down. Too up and down to trust either one for me.
All right, let's move to the Steelers next, Shawn. And they played 66 snaps. They played my birthday snaps against the Bengals. You had a
100 and what? Hang on.
Hey. Of course, this became a blowout game late. I'm old, but I ain't that old, man. Alex Highsmith, unfortunately, out again. Supposed to practice on a limited basis to start the week. Not sure if he'll be playing. If he doesn't play, Nick Herbig will put into our lineup. He played 94% of snaps and did get 1 sack with a couple of tackles. Cam Hayward was down to 64%, but had 5 tackles. At the linebacker position, Patrick Williams plays typical 100%, but it's time for the weekly public service announcement for the second linebacker role, Shawn. So Peyton Wilson, after being down to 56% previous game, back up to 76% this week. Now, he only had 6 tackles, which is a little bit lower. Cole Holcomb was out again with this illness, but Malik Harrison, who had jumped up to 45% of snaps last week, was back down to 33%. Shawn, what's your bet on what percent of snaps Peyton Wilson is going to play this coming week?
Oh my gosh. 68.
68. Does that make him playable?
In deep leagues, yes, because he has been pretty efficient for his time. And by deep leagues, I'm talking linebacker 4, possibly a low 3, but I feel better at 4.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Linebacker 4 as well. Kyle Duggar continues to play a full-time role since the acquisition. Now they're playing him deep a lot. He played 73% of his snaps deep. He did get the pick six that bailed him out. Otherwise, he only had 3 tackles. So
Yeah.
don't chase those points without understanding the context. The pick six really bailed him out. Jalen Ramsey was the other full-time safety. Of course, that was until he threw some punches, but rightfully so. After it was clear that he was spit on, even though it was denied, and I'm not going to mention that the person's name who went to LSU that did that. This safety move is a permanent move for Ramsey. He played about 70% deep again. Boy, that just really sucks. Shawn, in a cornerback required league where he's playing safety, which we typically love, but he's playing 70% deep. Are you still playing him as a cornerback?
I probably, if I already have him on my team, probably. Because he is still getting like a solid 5-6 tackles, somewhere around there each week. So it's not just terrible. But I would like to see either some more tackles or the big play. I think that's what we're really missing here. We're not getting the interceptions right now or forced fumbles or anything like that. So at corner, I'm still going to play him, but I'm not super excited.
I'm playing him if there's a bump up for points for cornerbacks versus safeties in
That's a good
particular.
point. Yeah, yeah. 'Cause sometimes they'll get higher points for tackles, especially, and then your pass deflections, which I don't think he has a whole lot of. But yeah,
He does
just the
not.
big plays is what's really killing us here, especially with the way he started out.
Now, Brandon Echols has been playing that slot position now with Jalen Ramsey moving to the safety position. Now, it's not quite the star role. At least I haven't been seeing Echols blitz as much. He did get 74% of the snaps, most of it close to the line of scrimmage, and Echols did have 7 tackles.
Now, I
It-
have been playing Eccles in cornerback required leagues. However, he has an ankle injury, so that may be something that comes up. Something we're going to have to watch out for. If he doesn't play, I assume it'll be somebody else taking the spot. 'Cause like you said, Ramsey is penciled in or inked in at this point at safety. So I'm not sure where it goes next.
Exactly. So, and Asante Samuel Jr. is something to keep an eye on as well. They signed him to the practice squad. He can play outside, but has played a decent amount in the slot as well. If you see on a Saturday afternoon that Asante Samuel is elevated from the practice squad to potentially play as part of the 47 man on Sunday, got to be real careful about playing Eccles. Okay, that's your warning, folks. We'll keep an eye on it. And if you join us for the Start Sit Show, which, by the way, every Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, we take your start sit questions for both offense and defense. So come and join us. We also have a lot of fun. We have a lot of regulars, and we have some new folks coming every week, and we give out a lot of great information, particularly based on what comes out on Friday final injury reports, plus these Saturday call-ups from practice squads that tell you a lot about potential injuries and who might end up being sit out. So join us Sunday mornings, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central.
And we're never wrong.
I don't want to brag or anything or pat her on the back. I won't say we're never wrong, but man, we got a high percentage of being right. And considering there's a lot of crystal balls that are needed, we do a pretty darn good job if I say so myself. Okay, let's
Chris,
move to the Houston.
yeah, Ricky takes one option, I take the other. That's why we're never wrong. We hedge them all.
Heads I win, tails you lose, or something like that.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the Houston Texans, who only had to play 59 snaps against the Titans. Now, one of the things we've been talking about, if you have a good edge player and even some good interior players potentially, I mean, really good interior players, and they're playing against the Titans, you play them. So even on 59 snaps, Will Anderson, he only played 63%. Daniil Hunter played 68%. Both had 4 tackles. Anderson had 1 sack. Daniil had 1.5 sacks. So what's the message about playing our defensive lineman against the Titans, Shawn?
Yeah, always play them. Always play them.
Now back to our public service announcements for number 2 linebackers. Aziz Al-Shahir continues to play 100% of the snaps in the middle for the Texans. On the other hand, there's this EJ Speed, Henry To'oTo'o thing going on in number 2 linebacker, but for the second week in a row, EJ Speed has the most snaps at the number 2 linebacker position with 78% this week after 82% last week. Now only 5 tackles, but as we were talking about earlier in the show, 59 snaps. You're losing some key snaps. Not as some that are in the 40s, as we'll talk about a little bit later, but you are losing some snaps. But Speed had 5. To'oTo'o was all the way down to 49% of the snaps, only had 3 tackles. Shawn, how you feeling about EJ Speed after these 2 weeks?
Could care less.
Don't hold back now.
Yeah.
Come on, now. Tell me what you're really thinking.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I've been on this bandwagon since before the season kicked off. I wanted nothing to do with this linebacker core, and I still don't. Just because it was EJ Speed this week doesn't mean it won't be To'oTo'o next week. They might even throw Christian Harris in there by the end of the year.
That's one of my predictions as a side note that Harris will end up there. So we shall see. Jalen Petrie was out with a concussion. He will be out again this Thursday, as will CJ Stroud. So both of them have been, it's been verbally said, it hasn't come out on the official reports, which will come out on Wednesday. But Petrie's out. So with him out and with MJ Stewart on injured reserve, Kalen Bullock and Miles Bryant were your 100% safeties, basically. But when they needed to move someone to the nickel, Miles Bryant moved to the nickel. Jalen Mills came in and played that other safety position. So Miles Bryant actually led the team in tackles with 8. So he basically played the Jalen Petrie role that happened.
Yeah, he's somebody I picked up last week. Started in 2, maybe 3 leagues because I've seen Miles Bryant do it last year. I believe he filled in
When
as
he got
well.
the playing time.
Yeah. He wrecks us some tackles, and that's for a free safety that was just sitting on the wire that nobody thought of. That's fantastic, and I'm probably firing up again this week.
And he does have cornerback eligibility on
Yes.
most of the platforms. I think maybe all of the platforms he's listed as a cornerback.
Yeah,
So
there's 1 or 2. I think he has dual for corner or safety, and then sleeper obviously is just defensive back.
So the last thing we mentioned about the Texans too, Kamari Lassiter played in the previous game. He played a decent amount in the slot when a bunch of injuries hit. This week he went back to his typical outside cornerback position, but only had 2 tackles. But this was Cam Ward in the Tennessee Titans who lost Calvin Ridley to a broken fibula in the first play. Shortly thereafter, they lost Chimere DK. On the punt return, they had nobody to basically throw to. Shawn, you look like you wanted to say something.
I think Jalen Mills playing this week was a big part of that also, to where Miles Bryant probably would have took over those slot role, but they had to play him at safety the week before because of the injuries during the game. So this week against the Titans, it was Bryant more in the slot and some at safety. Jalen Mills was elevated, came in at safety as well. So that kept Lassiter outside. So I expect that to be the new norm until Petrie comes back.
Which I have a feeling this will be the last game where you have an opportunity to use
too.
Bryant like this. So don't overspend on Fab if you have to make a Fab claim for him, unless you're desperate for a win. Otherwise, because you probably only have Bryant in this role for 1 more week.
Yeah.
The Colts will be coming back off a bye. We're hoping that Zaire Franklin can get back and rephrase that. He actually hit double-digit tackles in the last game. Granted, that game went to overtime, but let's hope that he can do so again as the Colts come back. As we move to the Jaguars, who in probably one of the most shocking games of the week, and this is one that I was just so wrong on in terms of how I thought that game was going to go. And the Jaguars defense only had to play 48 snaps in this blowout game against the Chargers. Foye did play 100% of the tackles, and he did tie for the team lead in tackles with 5. Leading tackler tied with 5. 48 snaps. Basically, that's a whole quarter of a game that was not played by the Jaguars defense. Devin Lloyd, 85%, didn't do much in the stat column. I've been stressing on this show that a lot of his stats came from big plays.
Yep.
And if he doesn't get those big plays, he wasn't putting up the tackle floors that we would like from some of these hiring linebackers. So just be careful with that on Devin Lloyd. Trayvon Walker looked like he was finally back to his pre-wrist injury capabilities and success. He had 4 tackles, a half a sack, 2 quarterback hits on 65% of the snaps, which wasn't a whole lot, as we talked about. That's in the 30 plus range. And then he hurt his knee. The good news, if I'm going to say there's good news, is that there's been no reports that I've seen in terms of it being a significant injury. Usually, if there is, we're hearing it's an ACL tear and he's out for the year, things along those lines. We haven't heard that. So, Shawn, I'm treating that as good news for now.
Yeah, now that you bring it up, I haven't heard anything either. So, sprain, maybe? Sounds like it's something short term, or maybe not. Maybe not going to keep him out at all. That'd be great.
Yeah. So fingers crossed on that. I'm planning on holding him for where I have him, even if he doesn't get stashed in injury reserve, because I liked what I was seeing. And then unfortunately we had the knee injury, and he's been someone I was been previously holding as well, because I was waiting for that whole wrist injury, knowing he was playing limited without that capability. But it looks like he was on his way back. Josh Hines Allen got a sack, set a team record for total sacks, if I understood the announcers correctly. So congratulations to him. Jordan Lewis didn't play, and of course Travis Hunter is out for the year. Greg Newsome, who they acquired from the Browns in the Tyson Campbell swap of cornerbacks, he got injured, only played 13% of the snaps. So Christian Braswell went in for him, played across from Monteric Brown. Jerry Jones continued to play the slot position and was fairly effective in that slot position, though he's not one of these, as I like to refer to him, Dax Hill types, where he plays on the outside and move to the inside. Might that change for this game? Potentially, but as of now, it looks like it's going to be Braswell and Brown on the outside. We haven't heard that Jordan Lewis is ruled out as well. So if he's back, Shawn, would you play Jordan Lewis if he's back?
If Jordan Lewis is back, yeah, he's the guy that I was putting in my lineups and just turning loose, just kind of setting it and forgetting it, because he was giving me plenty of high tackle games, and that's what I want from my corners.
So then at the safety position, Andrew Wingard ended up playing 73% deep after 51% deep the week before. Now, I haven't been able to study this in full, folks, so I'm just being really transparent. But when you've got such a massive lead, you're going to play 2 deep safeties and let them throw the ball in front of you. So I do expect Wingard's snap count to return back to where he's closer to the line of scrimmage about 50% or so of the time, and for him to be able to be productive. But that happens in some of these blowout games, and you always have to be careful about context, right, Shawn?
That's correct, but I noticed something in your notes. You don't have the big key acquisition to the practice squad. Juan Thornhill is now a Jaguar.
That is a great call out. I did not put that in the notes. You're absolutely correct. So let me ask you, do you think Juan Thornhill can jump Antonio Johnson for that other safety role next to Antonio Wingard?
It's not outside of impossible there. It could happen because Antonio Johnson does get. Well, I think he's looked better this year. What few plays I have seen, he does look a little better, but it wouldn't take much to leapfrog him. Where Thornhill was used to playing deep a lot, they could drop him deep, put Wingard up close, and then kind of take Johnson out and just go with that. And that may be what we see here soon. So if you have Antonio Johnson, have been starting him, I would be a little nervous in the coming weeks.
Absolutely planning for a contingency. That's a great call out, Shawn. That's why you're the IDP savant, man. All right, so let's move to the Tennessee Titans, and they played 70 snaps against the Houston Texans. Cody Barton, who I know is one of Shawn's favorite players out there, he only had 5 tackles once again on 70 snaps, but he did come through with a big play sack again, and he got 3 pass defenses to boot. But Cedric Gray,
that's
amazing.
What kills me. Cody Barton. He can get sacks, he can get interceptions, but he sucks so bad at tackling that it only puts him up to where a lot of other tackle floors are. If he could get half the tackles Cedric Gray is getting and those big plays, we're looking at Cody Barton as just outside the top 12.
Absolutely. Yeah, but unfortunately, we've seen it for a long time with Cody
Yeah.
Barton, haven't we? We
Yeah.
have.
It's just, but he won't go away either. And it drives me nuts. Go ahead.
Yeah. Cedric Gray, amazingly, with 11 tackles again, top 2 in the league for tackles. Just absolutely amazing what kind of year he's had, considering where he started from. And in preseason, it wasn't even clear that he was actually going to get on the field. And it was James Williams.
Wow. Feels like a lifetime ago. That was everybody's sleeper. James Williams. James Williams. That was all the indications. And then right at the end, Cedric Gray had built up in practice and took it over. And then we had the Kaiser White week, and been Cedric Gray ever since. Number 3 in total tackles with 102.
Oh, it's number 3. I thought it was number 2 off the top of my head.
There's an old guy in between him and Brooks.
Oh, Mr. Wagner jumped in front
Mr.
of him?
Wagner, yes, sir.
All right. Okay, got it. All right, so Jeff Simmons returned and played 83% of the snaps. He got a sack, which was fantastic. That's what we love about Jeffrey Simmons. No other defensive tackle played over 42% snaps, and that includes Tavondre Sweat. And I know some people are on this Tavondre Sweat bandwagon. We've talked about we're typically not playing nose tackles. I know Travis Jones is a nose tackle type that we talked about a little bit earlier. But in general, we're not playing those nose tackle types because they usually play about 40-ish% of the snaps and don't usually get us the big plays that we're looking for. Jihad Ward played 81% of the snaps. Arden Key returned and played 71% of the snaps, and Arden Key was quite productive. Shawn, how are you feeling about Arden Key as a number 3 defensive end right now, particularly with all these snaps?
Yeah, if he can keep it rolling, we've seen him put some sacks up, but he is a bit sack dependent. So boomer bust. But if you're down to edge 3, then it's that'll work.
That is correct, sir. And how bad are the Titans that you have Jalen Harrow as your number 3 edge playing 60% of the snaps? Okay.
There's a lot of local guys that like Jalen Harrow.
Yeah, everybody gets excited about the second quarterback. They get excited about the
edge rusher.
That's
Titans,
I was
man,
looking for the
got.
words and you filled in the blank quite nicely for me. Thank you, sir. At the cornerback position, Darrell Baker, 100% of the snaps, 12 tackles. Jalen Armour Davis and Sam Womack split the other cornerback position. I didn't hear if Jalen Armour Davis got hurt that caused for that to happen, but I was very happy with Jalen Armour Davis prior to this as someone that was getting targeted fairly regularly. But without some injury news here, a little bit nervous, so be careful on Jalen Armour Davis. Marcus Harris is their slot cornerback, by the way, which they were very pleased with in a lot of the reports I read about the Titans, but he's not playing enough. There's too many other slot cornerbacks would rather have him over Marcus Harris. At the safety position, Xavier Woods was out. Quandre Diggs was released the week before. And believe it or not, only 2 safeties played 100% of the snaps. Amani Hooker at 100%, and he ended up with 9 tackles. Kevin Winston Jr., 100%. He had 6 tackles and a quarterback hit. Hooker played 56% deep. Winston played 63% deep. I wish that would have kind of been flipped because I have this thing for Kevin Winston Jr.'s capabilities. Call it rookie-itis, maybe. If Xavier Woods returns, is this going back to a 3 safety rotation, Shawn?
I think so. But Woods is more of a deep guy, so it may actually push Winston up in the box a little more and have Woods more deep. So it may actually help him. He may get better looks, but on less snaps. That makes sense.
Yeah, we're still not playing Winston.
No.
But for Dynasty, he's someone that I certainly like for sure. And I believe you do as well too, Shawn. Right, Shawn?
Yeah, definitely. Woods is no spring chicken. I would be surprised if he's there next year.
Yeah, and Hooker's up there in age, is getting up there in age as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's move to the AFC West and let's talk about the Broncos, who beat the Chiefs, and so the Chiefs are on the outside looking in the playoffs right now, and all three teams ahead of them in the wild card spot have beat them head to head. So they don't have the tiebreakers against any of them, interestingly enough. But we're here to talk about IDP. So let's talk about the 70 snaps that the Broncos played against the Chiefs. Of course, Alex Singleton missed the game after having the surgery to remove the cancer from his body. Prayers continue for him and all that are dealing with cancer. Now, the Broncos are on bye this coming week, so you're not going to have your Zach Allens, your Nick Bonitos, etc. None of those guys will be available. And it's expected, based on a report I heard today, that Alex Singleton, I shouldn't say expected, but there's a chance that he will be back in week 13 and only have missed one game. So if he's back, we're throwing him in. That's really amazing. Now, Justin Sterner wore the green dot in his absence and played 100% of the snaps and had 10 tackles. Dre Greenlaw, extremely disappointing, only played 61% of the snaps and only had 4 tackles.
Mm.
He's usually hyper efficient. They played 70 snaps, more than average, only 4 tackles. Really disappointing. Shawn, even with some buys coming up, I don't think we're playing Dre Greenlaw right now.
No, unfortunately, all the injuries that kept him out at the beginning of the year is what allowed Justin Stratton to really take over and to pretty much earn his role. And that's one of my problems with Greenlaw. I know a lot of people were expecting a lot out of him. I stayed away from him. It's the injuries, and that's what's held him back. And then a questionable suspension or flag ejection or whatever that one game. But
Now, if we go back 1 week, Greenlaw played in the 60% range, and Sterner only played 10%, while Singleton played 100%. Do you think that's what it's going to return to? Or do you think Sterner's going to leapfrog Greenlaw?
I it's got to be closer to an even split with what he's been doing, with sacks and everything too. Because if we go back to that game, I believe Justin had a sack that kind of saved his day. They kept him up there close to Greenlaw. It's hard to say. There's so many moving parts on this team. But
And when it's hard to say, that means if you're risk averse in particular, you got to stay away from them.
That's all we can do until somebody really takes over. Like I say, I like what Sternad's done, but if Singleton comes back, you can't play Sternad or Greenlaw. But if Singleton's out, then Justin's the guy.
Now, the edge position, Benito's snap count was all the way down to 57%. Cooper 61%. So both of them, after having jumped back down, which was surprising given this was against the Chiefs. Now, it could be because of the 70 snaps, which is more than average. And as a result of that, it could be that they played a slightly lower percentage because the snap count ends up roughly being about the same. But what was interesting for those in dynasty leagues, Jonah Ellis didn't play any snaps. It was Q Robinson that rotated with Dondre Tillman as the 4 on the edge. At the defensive tackle position, they once again had a 5-person rotation. At least Zach Allen jumped back up into the high 60s, 66%. I guess that's the high 60s versus being in the high 50s the previous week. None of the other defensive tackles were even above 50%. Pat, you have a comment to make.
Fun fact, Zach Allen leads the league with quarterback hits. He has 30. 9 ahead of Myles Garrett.
That's why we love Zach Allen.
The Broncos defense itself has really generated a lot of pressure, a lot of sacks. That's one of the biggest reasons for the success. This week was just really a tough matchup against the Chiefs, who don't allow a lot of sacks and everything. So we'll forgive them this week.
Yeah, and the Chiefs don't give up a lot of sacks. The Broncos had 1 sack from Daquan Jones and 2 from Jaquan Millen off the slot. So that's how it worked out. Now, speaking of Jaquan McMillan, he played 87% of the snaps, 98% of those close to the line of scrimmage. And for those that might be new, or a reminder, when I say close to the line of scrimmage, they either played on the defensive line, in the box, or in the slot, one of those 3 alignments. He had 6 tackles, 2 sacks, and an interception. That's 2 fairly big weeks in a row that he's had. But there's been no Patrick Surtain. Jahdae Barron, who was kind of rotating with him, has had to play more on the outside with the absence of Surtain. If Surtain is back, are you trusting McMillan? If Surtain is not back, are you trusting McMillan? Shawn?
Well, we're getting ready to crush his momentum with a bye week. So I think that's going to be the big problem here. He was fantastic last year. That's why we loved him last year. He was getting sacks, interceptions, deflections, tackles. He did it all, and we know what he can do. It's just been because they spent that first round pick on Barron. He's had to rotate a bit, and kind of screwed us up. But if Surtain is out, I'm playing McMillan for sure.
I'm right there with you. Now, the safety position, Brandon Jones played 66% of his snaps deep. Hufanga only played 41% deep. This has become a trend now. So, of the two, Hufanga is the one you want, whereas last year it was Brandon Jones who played more of that role that Hufanga is playing this year. So, disappointing if you acquired Jones, hoping for similar production because the utilization is very, very different this year. And as we were just talking about, the Broncos are on a bye in week 12. So, folks, start lining up how you're going to supplement your Broncos that are going to be out this coming week. Let's move to the Chiefs here, Shawn. Chiefs only played 62 snaps versus the Broncos. Nick Bolton played 100%. He had a whopping 6 tackles in the pass defense. Drew Tranquil. Sound like I got hit with a tranquilizer when I was trying to say that. Drew Tranquil had 7 tackles on his 87%. Chris Jones played 84%, and my gosh, he actually got a sack. I believe that was the only play that he had where he got an IDP stat for us, if I remember correctly. No other defensive tackle played more than 31% of the snaps for the Chiefs. So part of Chris Jones's problem is even with Karlaftis, there's not much to stop teams from double teaming him, triple teaming him, etc. Unfortunately. But I have a league where my 2 defense tackles are Chris Jones and Zach Allen. So Chris Jones is probably going in my lineup this week. Okay. Unless Christian Barmore's out there and available. Trent McDuffie played 100% of the snaps, but unfortunately, if you remember pre-bye, I was kind of getting giddy. Yeah, that's a fancy term, giddy. And because he had played so much in the slot and he had a really productive, efficient IDP scoring game, which is how he was so successful in his rookie year and why we liked him coming out of that rookie year. But since then, he's played primarily on the outside. Well, unfortunately, this week he did revert back to playing primarily on the outside. And he only played 11% of the snaps in the slot, just for the full context. And he had a whopping 3 tackles in the whole game as a result. Chamari Connor, though, did Chamari Connor stuff and had 8 tackles and a sack. And he, once again, played 72% of the snaps close to the line of scrimmage. Chamari Connor, top 12 safety for us. Shawn, I don't know if there's anything else you want to comment about the Chiefs, man.
It's business as usual. We expect Chamari Connor to give us good numbers, and sometimes Karlaftis gives us a sack, and that's about it. Nick Bolton, we don't trust him to be our top guy, barely our second guy. So, yeah, nothing new.
All right, let's move to the Raiders then, who played 67 snaps against the Cowboys on Monday night. Boy, we got some bad-looking teams out there. The Titans, the Raiders. The Raiders look really bad. But Devin White did play 100% of the snaps in his career resurgent year from LSU, leading the team with 10 tackles and a quarterback hit. Landon Roberts, only 52% of the snaps. Jamal Adams, 49%. The week before, Adams played a little bit more than Roberts. On this show last week, I talked about the fact how the Raiders had signed Jamin Davis most recently from the Jets, but of course the former first-round pick from the Washington, fill in the blank of whoever they were back then when they drafted him in the first round. And when the game started, he was playing that ugly Jermaine Pratt role because I was watching specifically for him. So he was out there playing on that edge, hard to be productive in that role. And it's like, oh my gosh, so he is getting that playing time and playing that role. But when he went to two linebackers, I saw him at least one snap where he's in there for two linebackers. But then from there, he pretty much disappeared. He played only 19% of snaps in total, had three tackles, and it seemed like all of that was in the first half. I don't. He may have played some in the second half, a snap or two. I didn't see, to be honest with you. With the way this Raiders linebackers positions jumbled, I believe we can trust Devin White. I don't think we play Roberts. We don't play Adams. We don't play Jamin Davis. We don't play any of those guys, right, Shawn?
Yeah, White's the only one you can trust. He's like top 8, 10, somewhere around there in fantasy right now. So great surprise because you got him late, if not off the waivers. So he's the only one to trust right now.
And somebody on this show may have predicted in our top 24 show who would finish in the top 24 this year and may have picked Devin White. And
Huh.
I don't mean, and that person's patting himself on the back right now, but I digress.
Hmm.
Speaking of players we're not playing Malcolm Coons, Tyree Wilson, or Charles Snowden, whose snap count went all the way back down to 27% after having a really productive week the previous game and playing about 45% of the snaps, and he just back to where it was. At the safety position, the only surprise, Lonnie Johnson actually played 48% of the snaps. If you saw him on the field, played a lot in three safety looks. He played 88% deep. We're not chasing him. Caillou Blue Kelly and Darian Porter continued to platoon at the cornerback position across from Eric Stokes. So Blue Kelly did have 5 tackles, but there's a risk at any point in time that they can decide to give Porter the snaps and bench the journeyman Caillou Blue Kelly. Moving to the Chargers, who we talked about it earlier with the Jaguars, but someone forgot to tell the Chargers that they were going to buy this coming week, week 12. They must have thought it was week 11 that they were going to buy Shawn because of the way they played. Now, the defense had to be on the field for 71 snaps as a result. Now, you would have thought we might have gotten a little bit more IDP production, but in a blowout game, even with that many snaps, then you don't see players playing as much snaps as they typically do. So Thule's snap count was down. Khalil Mack's snap count was down. Deion Henley only played 82% of the snaps. So that's why he ended up with 5 tackles. But Henley continues to disappoint. He's not quite as disappointing as Terrell Bernard. You might feel differently. Henley or Bernard, which one are you taking right now, Shawn? If
Oh,
you had to
I'm playing Henley over Bernard, and I have been. That's been a real scenario for me every week.
but both have been really disappointing, sadly.
I'm playing Devin White over both.
Oh, absolutely. That's I'm right there with you. So Denzel Perryman had 7 tackles to tie for the team lead. Derwin James played 83%. Once again, a lot of snaps, coastal line of scrimmage, but only 5 tackles and 1 pass defense. Tarheeb still returned from injury. Of course, still was our Dax Hill that we liked. He played on the outside and then moved to the slot and 3 wide. We weren't seeing some of the productivity that we had seen from last year. Seems like they were easing him back in. He played 34% of the snaps. He's someone as the year progresses, I think we want to keep an eye on, and he might be a late season stash depending on matchups. That's about it for the Chargers, man. Other than saying they are on bye this coming week, so they've had 2 byes in a row. So come week 13, they should be well rested and ready to go.
Yeah, that was ugly all the way around. The edge rushers who had been kind of on a roll did nothing. I will say Justin Eboigbe did 6 tackles, was second on the team behind Denzel Perryman of all people and Elijah Bolden.
Yeah,
He has been a fantastic pickup at defensive tackle.
the
So
reason I didn't bring him up is that, and that is fair, he had 6 tackles. The Jaguars were running the ball so much late in the game, which created those extra opportunities for him. And so I worry, not weird, I worry that some of that got inflated because of the blowout type of game. But he has been doing well, to your point, and we have talked about in previous.
I I actually dropped Zach Sealer or Dexter Lawrence earlier in the year for him, and I that felt good about the move.
No
So
regrets.
no regrets, and those are both 2 big names, and you can't hold on to big names, especially defensive tackle. So find those guys that are heating up at the right time.
Exactly. All right, let's move to the NFC, Shawn, and let's start off with the Cowboys. Of course, they were coming off the bye, and of course, Marshawn Nealon, may he rest in peace. And if there's people out there that do need help, please ask and reach out. They were publicizing I believe it's 868 is the number to call. If you need help, please do that. Fantasy football might be your escape, but then when fantasy football is over, if you need help, please reach out. Okay. And some very sincere comments on that, as well as the cancer discussion we had earlier on Alex Singleton. All right. So let's talk about the Cowboys. Of course, lots of changes. DeMarvion Overshown and Siobhan Revel both activated from IR PUP. Malik Hooker activated from IR. They acquired Quinnen Williams. They acquired Logan Wilson. Donovan Wilson returns from injury. So a lot of new faces on that defense. Now, the defense did look a lot better, but Shawn, who did they play?
They played the Raiders, who are one of the worst teams in the league.
So it's hard to draw conclusions on
For
this.
sure.
So there's a lot of reasons to, on the one hand, get excited about the stats, but it was the Raiders. I can't do this very well.
Yeah, good. I don't have enough cough drops for that tonight.
So the Cowboys only had to play 60 snaps versus the Raiders, and as we predicted, and now we weren't the only ones, but we did predict, and that's how the way it played out. There was a rotation with Kenneth Murray and Shamar James, and then Logan Wilson and DeMarvion Overshown, with Maris Lufau playing the third linebacker position, regardless of who the other two were. Murray, 43% of the snaps, Shamar James, 43%, Logan Wilson, 57%, Overshown, 52%. Now, they showed Overshown having to miss a few snaps because he had a problem with his knee brace and they were adjusting it on the sideline, so he missed a couple of snaps because of that. But otherwise, I would think it would have been basically about the same, 43 and 57 for all these guys. With that being said, Shawn, this coming week, what is, you being the IDP savant, are we going to have a rotation again this coming week, or are we going to see mostly Wilson and Overshown? And I'm willing to give you my prediction first in my crystal ball.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's going to be a rotation at least for one more week.
Absolutely. We have Wilson still learning the system, which I believe he shared the green dot with Murray when they swapped out. So he's still learning the system. Overshown's still coming back. So he'll definitely still be on a bit of a pitch count. Like he's had some serious knee injuries in his short career in college and NFL. So they're going to want to be patient with it, or they should be patient with him. I'll say that. So we'll see him ramp up over the next week or two. So if you've held on to him all season, it should pay off in the playoffs, assuming you made it there.
But patience will be required.
Yes, and then Wilson, I expect to take over quicker than Overshown, just based on him being the veteran and miles ahead of Kenneth Murray.
You're a fan of Kenneth Murray right there with Cody Barton.
Yeah.
And there's one or two others we could probably mention as well.
At least Barton gets me a fun big play every now and then. Murray does not. He's just, for whatever reason, in our lives.
Because someone drafted him in the first round.
Yeah, because somebody was like, hey, this would be fun. Thanks, whoever that was.
All right, let's move to the defensive tackles. Quinnen Williams, he had one sack all year with the Jets, and he comes in, and I believe it was all in the first half. He had a sack and a half in his first game with the Cowboys. It was against the Raiders. He had 4 tackles, 5 quarterback hits in a second half, and he only played 55% of the snaps on only 60 snaps that the team played, which is below average. So great first game. Get excited for Quinnen Williams if you haven't been holding him, but don't expect this every week. Also, Digazua, surprisingly, was number 1 in snaps at 67%, and he had 3 quarterback hits and a sack. And Kenny Clark got half a sack and was number 2 in snaps with 65%. Those 3 are going to be quite the rotation here, and I do expect Quinnen Williams to move up slightly. Jay Toya played, I believe it was 30% of snaps, and Solomon Thomas was out. So Toya will be out. Solomon Thomas will get a few snaps in there, but I think hopefully those big 3 of Williams, Odigizua, and Kenny Clark will probably be manning that inside, Shawn.
Yeah, I think you're right. Similar to what we were looking at in Minnesota with Allen, Hargrave, Redmond, that kind of rotation going on where they're all relevant. And we've seen them all put up sacks in the past. So this should be fun.
Yeah. So if I was prioritizing them, by the way, Quinnen Williams, Odigizua, Kenny Clark last.
Absolutely.
Agree? Okay. All right. Moving to the edge where they now only have 5 people rotating because of the tragic death of Marshawn Nealon. Donovan Ziruku, I mean, I've said it, I don't know how many times, but now I can't say it today. And there's nothing in my Yeti as a side note. But Izuruku led the team once again with 53% of the snaps on the edge. So this is becoming a trend now. He is the number 1 edge for the Cowboys. And he's doing surprisingly well with, I shouldn't say surprisingly well, he's doing very well for a rookie, that is. That's why I use a surprisingly term. But 5 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, and a safety, and just running all over the field, chasing things down. Love the way he plays. Next was Jadeveon Clowney and James Houston, both at 47%. So very interesting to see Houston jump all the way up from that 20% range up to the 47%. But once again, for context, many of you may have heard that the Raiders only ran the ball with 3 design runs in the first half. The Cowboys probably saw that and knew the Raiders were also going to have to pass in the second half to try and catch up. So that bumped Houston's snaps up. I don't expect that trend to continue. Sam Williams was 4th with 43%. Dante Fowler was all the way down with 18% of the snaps. So even in the deepest of deepest leagues, if you've been holding out hope for Fowler, I think it's time to cut bait, folks. But hopefully you've done that already. And the secondary, a lot to talk about there. I know a lot of people have interest on that. Deron Plan played 95% of the snaps, but only 38% in the slot/box. He did play the majority of his snaps on the outside. He did lead the team with 10 tackles and 2 pass defense. So after being abused a couple of weeks ago before their bye, he got challenged quite a bit this week and did have a number of tackles. Of course, the Raiders also played a lot of 2 tight end stuff, which made it interesting as well, creating some of those tackle opportunities. Kalen Carson played 100% of the snaps on the outside. Reddy Stewart ended up becoming the primary slot cornerback, but he only played 37% of snaps, once again, because of all this 2 and 3 tight end. The Raiders played a lot of 3 tight end in this game as well, even as far behind as they were. Siobhan Revel, who was supposed to be a first-round pick but was a third-rounder because of his ACL injury, came off of IR, as I talked about earlier. He only played 32% of the snaps as they eased him back in. Most of that was on the outside. And, of course, there's Trevon Diggs, who will return at some point. So what I hope and expect will happen is we'll see Diggs and Bland on the outside. When other teams go 3 wide, Bland moves to the inside into the slot. And we see probably a rotation of Kalen Carson and Siobhan Revel until Revel gets up to speed. And then Revel will eventually replace Carson. That's how I think the cornerback situation shakes out. Notice there was no mention of Kyer Elam and any of that stuff. You can forget about Kyer Elam. At the safety position, Donovan Wilson returned, Malik Hooker returned. Those are your 2 safeties. Yes, Marquise Bell got an interception, which probably bumped up his points in your scoring, but don't chase him. He is the number 3 safety with Wanye Thomas on IR. Shawn, anything else? There was a lot to talk about on the Cowboys there. I wanted to give everybody kind of the real lay of land because they had so many changes. Anything else you want to add about the Cowboys and all these changes that we haven't hit on yet?
No, I believe you nailed it all. That was and there was a lot this week, and no, you did a good job doing all that. So well
All
done,
right.
Ricky.
Thank you, sir. Another pat on the back for Ricky for that's 2 in one night. Giants against the Packers, they only played 55 snaps, which was a very interesting game. That game was much closer than expected. Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles did return from that injury. He had returned in the previous game as well, but he did play. Played 87% of the snaps, but only had 5 tackles. Once again, only 55 snaps, so that clearly impacted that. But he is in that number 2 linebacker row next to Bobby Okereke, who did play 100% of the snaps and had 7 tackles. Kayvon Thibodeau was out. Brian Burns played 87% of the snaps, 2 more sacks, 4 more quarterback hits, and 5 tackles to boot. He's now up to 13 sacks for the year. There'd be a lot more discussion about Brian Burns happening right now if not for that other monster named Myles Garrett that we are talking about earlier.
Yeah, his 2 games have completely overshadowed what Brian Burns has done, which is insane.
And what's great about Brian Burns this year, and we're seeing a little bit more from players like Montez Sweat as well. So some of these guys have been, sack or bust, like a Will McDonald, who we talked about earlier. But at least Brian Burns is also generating tackles. Like he had 5 tackles this week. So where he was also a little bit more boomer bust, we're seeing more tackles out of him this year, even more than Montez Sweat. But even a player like Montez Sweat is getting some this year. Abdul Carter, depending on whose story you want to believe, it's been reported that he was sleeping. He was saying that he was in getting treatments. Regardless, they sat him out for a little bit of the early part of the game. He still played 89% of the snaps, but Shawn, there wasn't a whole lot on the stat line for Abdul Carter, was there?
No, he's actually been disappointing as of late. He should be getting better, not stalling out here.
Yep. Now, moving to the defensive secondary, Jevon Holland did play. Tyler Newman did not. Seems like every other week one of those two are injured. And I had said when those two are active, Dane Belton is irrelevant, but one was not active, which makes Dane Belton relevant. And for Belton specifically, it's much better when Holland is active instead of Newman, because when that happens, Holland plays deep and Belton plays close to the line of scrimmage. And Belton tied for the team league with 7 tackles. Javon Holland played 66% deep. Dane Belton played 42% deep. No word yet on will Newman play again this week. That's something we'll need to keep an eye on as the injury reports start coming out. Drew Phillips, once again, is a slot-only cornerback. They do not play him on the outside. They'd rather have Corey Black play out there along with Deontay Banks. So that tells you all you need to know about how they feel about Drew Phillips as only being a slot cornerback. And once again, he only played 47% of the snaps. Hard to put up stats along those lines. Giants are on bye in week 14, so plan ahead, folks, for those of you that are using the Brian Burns and the Okerake's, and maybe you had some injuries and you have picked up DFF. That's Demetrius Flanagan files as FYI. All right, let's go to the Eagles, Shawn, and we'll wrap up. Oh, no, that's right. The third team in the NFC East was only playing 60 snaps against the Lions. Their freaking defense looks phenomenal. And with Jalen Phillips back and Nolan Smith back and Nakobe Dean back, and holy cow, they look phenomenal. Phillips played 75% to lead the edge again, 5 tackles and a sack. Jalix Hunt, 62%, 1 tackle, 3 quarterback hits. Nolan Smith only played 38%, up from 28%. Brandon Graham played 13%. Shawn, where do you have Jalen Phillips and Jalix Hunt in terms of number 1, number 2, number 3 type defensive ends? Where would you put both of those two guys?
I think you can start raising Phillips up.
You couldn't. High end too?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. As long as he's healthy, he knows the system. The system fits him very well because he is a little bit lighter. So playing that outside linebacker position in this defense with Carter and Davis and
Ojimo.
Those 3 in the middle, that's 3 big bodies. That allows Phillips to run around and do a little more. And then when you have Cooper DeJean playing so well in the slot, moving around, running all over the field, that allows Phillips not to have to drop back as much either. So he can just go be himself. And this was a great trade for Philadelphia, assuming Phillips is healthy. So yeah, I'm expecting him to really ramp up and really keep it going. We're going to see big improvements for him.
So do you think Nolan Smith is going to eat into some of Jalix Hunt's snaps, or you think it's going to be like it is, about 62 and 38, which, by the way, adds up to 100 as a side note?
Yeah.
So you can see the rotation there.
Smith has kind of earned his spot too. I mean, he's done really well up until he got hurt. So Hunt disappears at times. I think it's those two that'll rotate more. Yeah, I do think Smith will start ramping up a little bit as well.
Okay, so you're pulling Hunt down a little bit more.
Pulling Hunt down a little bit, yeah. I think Smith will close that gap and maybe overtake it by the end of the year at least.
Yeah. Now, the bad news for Jordan Davis is with all these edge players now coming back, he is coming off the field more and is not playing as many snaps. They're leaving Carter on more. He played roughly the same. He played 90%. Ojimo staying at 63%, but Jordan Davis was once again all the way down to 48% of snaps. Jordan Davis was someone who I was using in one league that I don't think I can use him anymore because he's not playing that 60% range, not giving as many tackle opportunities, etc. And he did luckily have 3 pass defenses. He got his big paw up, but they were game planning for that's how the Lions like to go, and they were game planning for it and preparing for it. He's going to get 1 or 2 tackles. I can't rely on Jordan Davis anymore, Shawn.
Yeah, yeah, he's kind of. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing a really good NFL defense that, because there's all these moving parts and all these pieces now, it's going to start hurting IDP production for just about everyone to some degree. And unfortunately, Jordan Davis is one of those that's going to be hit the hardest, especially up front there.
Now, I was excited to see that Jalen Carter actually produced some stats for all the snaps that he does play. He had 5 tackles, 2 pass defense, so he might be the one that could potentially benefit from the Jalen Phillips and the Nolan Smiths and so forth all returning. Now, moving to the linebacker position, Zach Bond led the team with 7 tackles. Once again, only 60 snaps as a reminder, below average, folks. Nakobe Dean, once again, only played 67% of the snaps. He's been in that range for all 3 weeks. Jahad Campbell played only 35% of the snaps this week after 50 and 40% the previous 2 weeks since Nakobe Dean returned. Campbell only played 3 snaps of his 20 on the edge. He played 17 in the box. So there's still this little bit Dean-Campbell rotation, which is, at this point at least, capping Dean's ceiling. But I think it's like they know it's Dean for this year, and Dean's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. So they still want to give Campbell some playing time. So I think this might continue through the rest of the year until maybe the playoffs, when they do maybe just ramp up Dean. Shawn?
Yeah, Dean's kind of saved his stats the last 2 weeks, I believe, with sacks. So
Right.
they're using him, and they did that last year with blitzing, and he was able to get a handful or a few interceptions for us as well. So he's versatile. They're showcasing him enough, giving him his spot back. But like you say, this feels like the end of the road for him here in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Blankenship, 87% deep. Makuba, 76% deep in the typical Fix Fangio. I hadn't shared those numbers for a while, so I want to let y'all know nothing's changed in this Fangio defense. The safeties continue to play deep. Cooper DeJean continues to play 100% of the snaps. He only played 2% out wide. Unfortunately, he only had 3 tackles, but he got his first interception of the year, which kind of bailed him out. Shawn, let's move to the Commanders now. And they played only 56 snaps against the Dolphins. Bobby Wagner had 8 tackles, and to your point earlier, second in the league in tackles. He also had a pass defense. Frankie Louisville played 100% of the snaps. Once again, a significant portion out on the edge. 43% of his snaps were on the edge. And for context, for actual raw numbers, of the 56 snaps, 24 were on the D line, 28 were in the box, 4 were in the slot. And with that kind of usage, he finished with 5 assisted tackles. Not to mention there was only 56 snaps, as I talked about earlier. Jordan McGee played 48% of the snaps, and he had 5 tackles. At the edge, Jacob Martin continues to have the highest percentage at 79%, but can't really play Jacob Martin, right, Shawn?
Yeah, it's tough. He doesn't do enough to generate anything outside of a deep league dart throw. That, if you're truly desperate, I guess you could do worse.
Yeah. Boy, that's a ringing endorsement if I ever heard one.
Go get
Now,
him, Jacob.
Deron Payne was reinstated from his suspension. Um, they do have a bye this coming week, so no Commanders in week 12. He'll be back in week 13, so he's gotten a little bit rest. Plus, I think he's going to have something a little bit to prove. And week 13, maybe Deron Payne, someone we stick in our lineup. The safety position continues to be this rotational nightmare, with this week being Jeremy Reeves playing the 98% of the snaps, Quan Martin playing 66% of the snaps. Their IDP numbers reflected that. Darnell Savage was all the way up to 46%. Shawn, when week 13 comes out, I don't think you can chance Reeves or Martin, or certainly not Savage.
No, no, they're making it unplayable for us. We don't know whose week it's going to be, which week. There's no indication as to it may be 2 totally different guys on the team at this point. It's becoming a real mess. Avoid it. do what you can to avoid it.
Yeah, if I was playing one and have to be a deeper leagues in a desperate situation, it would be Reeves. Now, Mike Sanders played 100% of the snaps, which we like, but unfortunately, because of all the injuries, he only played 24% in the slot slash box. So that's not what we'd like to see from him. So it was great that he was getting back to 100%, but not in the utilization that we like. So hard to trust to play Sanders still unless some of these other cornerbacks come back from injury. And we know that Trey Amos won't be because he
No.
broke a fibula. We know that Marshawn Lattimore won't be because of his knee injury. So Sanders still could be in this situation. You may want to look for another cornerback. Let's move to the NFC Central, Shawn, and let's talk about the Chicago Bears. The Bears only had to play 55 snaps against J.J. McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings, who, we joke about not hitting the side of a barn. J.J. McCarthy's accuracy may have been a wee bit off. Okay, and that's part of the reason Kevin Byard got an interception, which bailed out his day. But let's start at the linebacker positions.
Called it on Sunday.
And I was going to save it for when we got back to the safeties, but since you brought it up,
I need it now.
he needs it now. Shawn gets his pat on the back. That is 2 weeks in a row on the Start Sit show that Shawn has called an interception, which is freaking hard to do. Cole Bishop 2 weeks ago. This week, Kevin Byard. So nicely done by Shawn. At the linebacker position, Tremaine Edmonds was second on the team with 9 tackles, pass defense, quarterback hit. Continues to play fantastically in this Dennis Allen system. Almost said Sean Payton. His Dennis Allen defensive system. TJ Edwards was out with this broken hand surgery / hamstring. It's more the hamstring is why he didn't play. As a result, Noah Sewell wore the green dot in Edwards' place, had another fantastic game, leading the team with 10 tackles. When Sewell was played, there's only been one game that's only been so-so, and it happens to be the one freaking game that I played him in the Kings Classic. I digress because I just had to bitch about that. Austin Booker played 93% of the snaps to lead the defensive end. 93% is a really healthy number. I talked about that last week as well. That could be another one of these things that's volume-based. Now, remember, it was only 55 snaps that they played. He only had 2 tackles. But with buys and so forth, he could be someone that in deep leagues, deep number 3 or maybe 4 defensive end. How do you have him right now?
Yeah, probably low end 3 right now. Just potential more than anything. We've seen it in the preseason. And it's enough to get excited about. This team is clicking. It's rolling right now. So, yeah, he could sneak on up there into that high end 3, maybe even low end 2 if they can keep it going.
I'll say they're winning. I don't know if I'll go with clicking and rolling, but I'll say they're
The
winning.
defense. Here's a fun stat. Do you know who leads the league in interceptions?
I saw this stat earlier today. I believe Byard now leads with 5, and then
Byard has 5.
Edmonds has 4, and Nashawn Wright also has 4.
Nashawn Wright has 4. So 3 of the top 4 leaders in interceptions are Chicago Bears.
And I know who the 4th one is too, because I now remember who it is.
We don't have to talk about him.
From the Jacksonville Jaguars.
He did that a year
very
ago.
early in the year. Yeah. Now, Montez Sweat also played 80% of snaps on the edge, so his numbers went up as well. Of course, this is with Deo Odeyingbo going on injured reserve with that torn Achilles. Now, after having a sack 4 games in a row, his sack streak came to an end. And I said that much better this week than I did last week as a side note. But at least he did get 2 tackles, a pass defense, and a quarterback hit. So not as many tackles as we were talking about with one of the edges earlier. We were talking about Brian Burns. But still, Sweat's tackles are up from what they've historically been. Dominic Robinson was the 3rd defensive end. He only played 22% of snaps, and Tryon Shoyinka, who they acquired in the trade from the Browns, only played 6%. This is really a Booker and Sweat show. And the reason I wanted to go through those latter 2 was to make the point again that Booker will get a lot of snaps, as will Sweat, which could be good for both of their stats, assuming the offense that they're playing is somewhat functional, unlike the Vikings that they played this week. Jaquan Brisker, only 3 tackles, continues to be disappointing. And Shawn, you probably dropped him in a bunch of leagues, is my guess.
I had him in one, and I dropped him a long time ago.
Yeah. And Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who played that Kyler Gordon role, which was the role we wanted from that Dennis Allen defense in the slot and all. This week, well, last week he had, what was it, 6 tackles and 2 sacks and a partridge in a pear tree. This week he only had 4 tackles. He did get a quarterback hit and he got a tackle for loss. He's not going to get 2 sacks every week in that role, but he should be fairly productive. And he did basically play 100% of the snaps. And with some of the cornerback injuries that they've had, they're really using him sort of as that fifth defensive back, which bodes well for his playing time. Chauncey Gardner Johnson, right now, are you on his bandwagon as long as
Yes,
he's playing and Kyler Gordon is out?
absolutely. Yeah, he was one of the guys I was most proud that I picked up 2 weeks ago, and I was able to get those 2 sacks. Yeah, I'm throwing him out there as long as he's starting, as long as he's in that position. I really don't see Gordon coming back and taking it from him. To be honest with you.
Yeah, I don't either, unfortunately, particularly with the history Gardner Johnson has with Dennis Allen.
Yeah,
So, what a bummer. That's one prediction that won't totally come true that I made.
you were
But
right on the roll, just not the player.
that's okay. That's fair. I'll take a half a
Yeah,
pat on the
there
back for
you
that
go.
one.
Just a
Agrees. Let's move to the Lions, who had to play 72 snaps against the Eagles. Jack Campbell, 100% of the snaps, 15 tackles. Anzalone, 94%. Derek Barnes, 88%. Now, all three had played 100% the week before, but we did see Derek Barnes play a little bit more on the edge as opposed to off-ball linebacker a little bit as a third linebacker. He was a little bit more on the edge as Tyler Lacey's snap count came down a little bit, or quite a bit, actually. Ali McNeil played 93% of the snaps. He only had 3 assisted tackles, but that's once again in defensive tackle required leagues. If you need a flyer on a bye, someone playing 90% of the snaps of defensive tackle, there's always a chance he gets a sack and maybe gets you a couple of tackles. Kirby Joseph was out again. Thomas Harper starting his place for the third week in a row and had 5 tackles. That's typically more than Kirby Joseph gives you from tackles. Remember, Kirby Joseph is usually interception or bust in a lot of our leagues. And by the way, don't chase Roy Lopez's stats. Talked about it last week. This week he did get another half a sack with 2 assisted tackles. Don't chase it, folks. We're just going to move on past the Lions, Shawn. That's really all there is to talk about. Let's go to the
you don't
Packers.
want to talk about Malcolm Rodriguez getting activated for pup?
You know what? Let's go ahead and talk about that because
That's
one of
okay.
the previous shows I talked about the fact that there is a risk of Rodriguez because they like him so much getting into the mix and impacting the snap count of some of these guys. That was last year. Does
Yeah,
that? Do you think that picks up this year, or
no,
he is
not
just
at
the
all.
fourth linebacker and special teamer?
Yeah, I think he's if anything, maybe he takes some away from Barnes. But as far as Campbell and Anzalone, he's not touching those 2 guys. Those are guys, clear cut starters. They're nothing to worry about.
Yep, we're 100% aligned on that for sure. I'm in a very different spot than where I was early in the year based on what happened last year. Okay, the Packers played 72 snaps against the Giants with Jameis Winston at quarterback, something I would not have forecasted. Michael Parsons played 85% of the snaps, and he had 6 tackles in a sack and a half. Rashawn Gary, all the way down to 54%. In fact, Kingsley Enoch Barry played 56% of snaps, played more than Rashawn Gary. Rashawn Gary has not had a sack in his last 3 games. Devontae Wyatt was down to third in defensive tackle snaps at 47%. Both Kobe Wooden and Carl Brooks played more than him. Very disappointing there. Quay Walker left with a shoulder injury. A stinger only played a little bit over half the snaps. Isaiah McDuffie replaced him and had a hell of a game with 11 tackles and a half a sack. And unfortunately, Edrin Cooper continues to play a lot of snaps, but just gets us a mid 6 tackles. If Walker is out, McDuffie is someone to pick up and play. We don't know Walker's status yet, but McDuffie in that green dot row feel good about, right, Shawn?
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen him last year, previous years. When he's in there, he's racking up tackles. Doesn't give you much more than that. He's pretty much just a tackle guy. But, you know, that's more than enough.
Yeah, when you get an 11 tackles and
Yeah.
74% of the snaps as he did. Now, once again, 72 snaps, which was more than average, so that certainly helped to inflate that a little bit as well. In the secondary, the story has been pretty much the same as what we've been saying the last several weeks. The only difference is Evan Williams was actually above 90% this week. He eked up to 92%, and he did get the one interception of Jameis Winston, which killed me and almost killed me in one of my leagues. I barely squeaked that one out, luckily.
I can't believe he only had one interception. I mean, that's
Yeah, there was plenty of opportunities. Jameis threw
yeah.
potentially 4 or 5, but only one, and it was really a nice one. He looked like a wide receiver. He looked
Yeah.
like. Oftentimes we say that's why they're playing cornerback
Yeah.
because or something along those lines. So that's why they play safety, not wide receiver. But he made a really nice interception on that.
Well, a lot of times we're saying, no, well, that's an interception Ricky could make. I don't think Ricky's pulling that one off.
Yeah, that one Ricky
Yeah.
that is for sure. If I tried, I would have hurt something, let alone not even, I would have definitely pulled something or broke something.
Would have hurt it
All right.
all. Yeah.
Let's move to the Vikings, who played 75 snaps versus the Bears. Jonathan Grenard did not play with a shoulder injury. It was only expected to be a 1-week miss. We'll see if that's the case. We talked about the fact that Dallas Turner could be volume based because, shout out to PFF, his pass rush grades have not been that great. But on that kind of volume, 75 snaps versus an average of 65, playing 89% of those, he got 7 tackles and he did a sack and he got 3 quarterback hits. So he had a much more productive game. I think that's going to be his highlight of the year, his high water mark for the year, Shawn.
Yeah, I'm right
Van
there with you.
Ginkel, Van Ginkel played 83% of the snaps, and he had 8 tackles and a sack, and he's looking like the Van Ginkel of last year now that he's past that neck injury. Javon Hargrave, after jumping to a season-high snap share last week of 79%, falls all the way back down to 33%. I was hoping maybe that was the beginning of Javon Hargrave being playable potentially, which I really liked with Grenard and Van Ginkel on the outside and with Allen and Redmond on the inside and him. I really liked what that could do for Hargrave, but I've got to give up on him. So I don't know why I've been trying to hold out, but like you said, some of these big name guys we just got to let go of, and he's one of them. Ricky just has to let go of his man crush on him. Okay. All of those other 3 defensive tackles, Allen, Redmond, and Drake Rodriguez, each finished with 3 tackles. Cashman, 100% of the snaps, 15 tackles since he's come back from injury. I think every game he's had double-digit tackles. He's been a monster. If he had been playing all year, he would probably be in the top 12 right now for IDP scoring. On a points per game basis, I didn't check, but he's probably up there. Shawn, we love us some Blake Cashman until he gets hurt again, right?
Until he gets hurt, he's our guy.
That is the one risk with him, is that he is injury prone, and we will see if he can stay healthy, and our fingers are crossed that he does. Eric Wilson still up at 92% of the snaps, 7 tackles and a quarterback hit. He did play a little bit more on the edge from an alignment perspective, but still he came through with 7 tackles for us, and they're still using him quite a bit on pass rushing. Ivan Pace, only 17%. So many people want to know. We keep on telling you, but you can't play Ivan Pace.
Yeah.
Theo Jackson only played 13% of the snaps on his return from the concussion. I did not see any injury reports on him whatsoever. Harrison Smith and Josh Metellus both played 100%. Harrison Smith played a freaking 83% of the snaps deep and had 2 tackles as a result. Metellus only 59% deep. The week before, he had only played 31% deep. He was 59% this week, but he's finished with 10 tackles. Shawn, let's go back to Eric Wilson for a second. Do you think the trend of him continues with that kind of utilization? Because since Cashman's been back, that's how he's been used. Do you think that's going to continue?
Yeah, I think so. We've seen him get the sacks here and there as well, so they definitely like using him out there. Now, as long as he can keep getting us that 5, 6, maybe 7 tackles a game, it's not that big of a risk. Now, if he starts dipping down to 2 tackles, 3 tackles, I'm looking elsewhere because I can't do that. That's not what I have him on my team for. I'm looking for a higher tackle floor. So depending on the matchups, how good the offensive line is he's playing against will depend on if I start Eric Wilson or not on some of these weeks.
All right. And so with Eric Wilson playing a lot more, because that role usually played about 60% of the snaps, that's part of the reason you're seeing a lot less Theo Jackson as well, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Let's move to Let's move to the NFC South, Shawn, and let's go to the Atlanta Falcons, who had that overtime game against the Panthers. And how
Crazy.
bad must the Falcons be sucking now that the Panthers beat the Falcons after the Saints
Wow.
just humiliated the Panthers the week before? The Falcons are just freaking falling apart. I think their head coach is going to be looking for a new job next year as a defensive coordinator. But
Yep.
they played 80 snaps. J.D. Bertrand did not play a single snap on defense. Ronnie Harrison played 98% of the snaps next to Caden Ellis. Of course, Ronnie Harrison, as a reminder, was a safety in college at Alabama, has been transitioned into a linebacker, but was a street free agent for quite a while, signed to the practice squad, finally promoted to the active roster when Diablo got injured. Harrison, 11 tackles, a sack, 2 quarterback hits, a pass defense. Holy crud. What a line he had. Much better than what Caden Ellis had, as a side note. Divine Diablo is supposed to be back very soon, possibly as soon as this week.
Desig-
Shawn,
Designated return already. Practice window is open.
if he plays this week, or even if he doesn't play this week, the following week, is Diablo going to just jump right in there ahead of Harrison? Is it going to be a platoon? What's going to happen at that number 2 linebacker position?
If he's good to go, I think Diablo goes right back to 100%. And I think Harrison was fun while it lasted. If you were in the minority that played him probably this week, fantastic. Trade him if you still can. Just not going to last.
Yeah,
Diablo's going to bring it back.
my youngest son pinged me because in his league, one of his deeper leagues too, no one picked him up, and he's like, should I pick him up? I'm like, dude, I'm with your take as well. I think when Diablo's back, Harrison's going to the bench, and that's it. And it's been nice knowing you, Ronnie Harrison. All right, let's move to the edge. Leonard Floyd did not play again. Jalen Walker once again led the edge with 64% of the snaps. Solid game with 4 tackles and a quarterback hit. Arnold Ebiketie was down from 49% all the way down to 19% of the snaps. I didn't see any injury reports, Shawn. I don't know if you did.
Nothing.
Nothing. Khalid Kareem played more than him, another journeyman. So that's what there's. If there's no injury, that tells you what they're thinking about Ebiketie right now. James Pierce once again at 59% of the snaps. Another sack this week, a sack 2 weeks in a row. I think that's 2.5 for the year. I don't think we're still chasing James Pierce. Are we, Shawn?
Not yet, but I am getting excited that he is improving. He's finally, generating some sacks and some more pressures and all. And to Walker's credit, he's doing better than I thought he would. Maybe next year this tandem could be something.
Exactly. I have to admit, I am pleasantly surprised at how well Jalen Walker's doing on the edge as well.
I've been real hard on the guy. I really have.
I actually predicted that he would suck so much on the edge that he would be playing off-ball linebacker next year when Caden Ellis would leave as a free agent, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore.
Yeah, I've been calling him a bust all offseason. I'm like, this kid's a bust. He's too raw. It's going to take him years to figure this out, but to his credit, he's looking solid. So
Exactly. Now, Brandon Jarlis jumped to number 1 in defensive tackle snaps for the Falcons, playing 64%. But remember, he was someone I've been saying, don't chase, don't chase, don't chase. And he had 1 assisted tackle this week. So that's why we say don't chase. Rui horror.
somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. I might have had a few extra horrors in there. But he went all the way from 81% of the snaps, where he had no stats, all the way down to 55%. Zach Harrison did not play, as a side note as well. So we're not playing any of those guys, except I do like Zach Harrison in your deepest of leagues. And he is someone on the waiver wire we'll talk about a little bit later. Jesse Plates played 54% of the snaps in the box. Xavier Watts only played 12% of the snaps deep, which was wow when I saw that. But then it was when I realized he only had 2 tackles.
Right. What a bummer.
Yeah, complete bummer. I have had Watts twice on one team, my Kings Classic team. I had him, I dropped him, I picked him up, I redropped him. And when I first looked at the snap alignment and saw how deep he played, I was like, I can't believe I dropped him again. And I dropped him for Iman Wari, in fairness too. But then I saw the IDP count. I'm like, okay, I feel better. D. Alford was out with a concussion. Billy Bowman Jr. reclaimed that role as a result. There's no Mike Hughes or D. Alford on the outside, so Natron Brooks played opposite A.J. Terrell. One of those folks should be back soon, so don't chase Natron Brooks' productivity. Let's move to the Panthers, who had 66 snaps against the Falcons in overtime. One defense. Chevin Wallace did not play due to injury. Christian Roseboom left the game in the fourth quarter with a hamstring injury. That's usually not a good sign. Now, the game did go to overtime, as we mentioned, so he played 82% of the snaps, and he did get 10 tackles, which was great. Claudin Charles ended up also getting 10 tackles. He finished with 79% of the snaps. Mema Njongmeta, and I know that's not how you pronounce it perfectly, but you can probably figure it out from there. He only played 8% of the snaps, but he was the only other linebacker that played some snaps. Trevin Wallace may not play this week. Christian Roseboom may not play this week. So this could be the chairless show as the green dot, which would be fantastic for him. For those that picked him up and were desperate for 1 week, they may get him for more than 1 week. And Njongbeta or Bam Martin Scott or Chris Barnes any one of those could play the number 2 linebacker spot, but we're not going to trust any of those guys. And are you still comfortable even playing Charles as the green dot if he's the green dot and Wallace and Roseboom are both out?
Yeah, because this Panthers linebacker spot has been productive no matter who's in it. So if Charles is there, I'm starting him. We've seen him get double digits this week. Yeah, but to your point, the second guy, definitely not. Whoever the second guy is, not. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's rotation. But Charles, yeah, for sure. And I imagine one of these guys will miss this game.
Yep, at least one. Okay, and so Turk Wharton played, once again, 87% of the snaps after 82 and 91 the past couple of weeks. Now, he only had one assist tackle in the pass defense where he was a little bit more productive. But this is a defensive tackle, and when you get in that many snaps, you can take a chance. Now, on the other hand, Derek Brown played 70% of the snaps. He had no stats, Shawn. I had to look at it twice. So Derek Brown, 70% of the snaps, nothing. Ashawn Robinson was all the way down to 29% of the snaps again with 2 assisted tackles. And he was performing what I thought so well, at least from an IDP stat perspective. But now I talked about dropping him, but then a couple of weeks ago, then his snap count went back up to 66%, but now it's all the way back down to 29%. I think we give up on Ashawn Robinson. Nick Skirton, 73%, 5 tackles. DJ Wanham, 71%, 1 assisted tackle. That's what we expect from DJ Wanham. Skirton, to his credit, even though he's not getting sacks, is getting a bunch of tackles, playing like a number 3 defensive end, Shawn, roughly, for Skirton.
Yeah, mid to low. I mean, his playing time is fantastic. Still a rookie, and there's not a whole lot of help from this Panthers team outside of the 2 defensive tackles or 3 defensive tackles who did nothing this week. So this guy, if this kid gets somebody else on the opposite side of him, we would see better stats. But it looks good for the future, just not the immediate future.
Now, I do want to talk about the secondary just briefly. Lathan Ransom was inactive due to injury. Shaw Smith-Wade had been the primary slot cornerback. Now, Corey Thornton ended up playing 70% of the snaps. And I was trying to do some research, and there was no Shaw Smith-Wade injury reported. Shaw Smith-Wade only played 23% of the snaps. The reporting said that because of the size of the Falcons' receivers between London, Kyle Pitts, David Sills, that they played Thornton because he was a little bit bigger and more physical than Shaw Smith-Wade. But part of it, too, was talked about because Ransom didn't play, that he took some of those snaps as well. But I think we have to caution for those that in the deepest of leagues, of which I have one, of which I have been playing Shaw Smith-Wade, that there could be a risk that, that is desperate. I know, I'm telling you.
Call me for help anytime, Ricky.
It's that salary cap league that I joined for the first time, and I picked up a team, and that's
salary cap. Yeah, don't call me.
Yeah. So with that, be careful if you are playing Shaw Smith Wade, but don't jump on Corey Thornton either. He did have 5 tackles and I think one, if not two, pass defense. So his numbers look good, but don't jump on Corey Thornton too fast. That's really the main message for everybody there as well. Okay. The Panthers are on bye in week 14. Not that there's a lot of Panthers defenders that you're probably playing, but just wanted to keep that in mind. The Saints were on bye. Go Saints when they come back. That's all I can say. Go Saints.
Another non-loss week
Another
in the
non-loss.
books.
If I remember correctly, they're playing the Falcons, and the Falcons won't have Penix. They might not have Drake London, or most likely won't have Drake London. The Saints are going to go and beat the Falcons, and all of a sudden they're going to end up with the number 12 or 13 pick and not be able to pick a quarterback. This is just going to suck. Okay.
Not with that defense. Just
Okay.
trade for Nick Cousins or Kirk Cousins next season.
Yeah. No.
That should be a fun 4 games, right?
All right. Let's switch gears quickly. Let's go to the Buccaneers, who only played 56 snaps versus the Bills. The Bills were marching up and down the field pretty quickly on the Bucs defense. They really went through them like a hot knife through
like the Saints through the Falcons this week.
All right. Hassan Reddick was out with an injury again. Anthony Nelson, 88%. Yaya Diaby, 82%. Those are your edge players. You know what you're getting with Nelson. He is a third edge. I know he had that great game against the Saints. He hasn't come close to duplicating that since. We told you don't chase it, and we're still saying don't chase it even if Reddick is out again. Both Servatia Dennis and Levante David did play 100% of the snaps. They both only had 4 tackles. I really believe this is Levante Davis last year. And last week, I must admit, I was kind of trying to defend Servatia Dennis a little bit. I'm kind of losing my faith in Servatia a little bit.
He got an interception, did he?
He did get an interception, so that saved him. But in terms of his tackle count, if you look back over the last several games,
it's not
there's been one good game, and there hasn't been much else. I'm starting to lose faith in him, and they might have a complete revamped linebacker crew next year.
It wouldn't hurt. This has been a good defense for linebackers, so whoever's in that, at least that main role, should put up something good. We could see possibly Quay Walker and Devin Lloyd team up next year for the Bucs.
Oh, wow. So we're going to do some free agent shows in the offseason. We'll do some interesting speculation there. Tyke Smith played 84% of the snaps the week before, was back to 100%. There's no reports of injuries that I saw of any significance. So not sure why the blip the previous week, but he only had 5 tackles, 2 pass defense, but they only played 56 snaps, folks, as a reminder. Winfield played only 43% deep. This was another thing where Tyke Smith only played 45% deep, where teams were saying, we don't think the Bills wide receivers can beat us deep. Of course, Tyrell Shavers did beat him on one of those pass plays deep, and they were determined to stop the run. And so they played the safeties close to the line of scrimmage. So that's one of those things where, from a matchup perspective, those things can happen. And that's how it played out. And they just didn't play a lot of snaps. I'm sorry, I'm rambling here. Jamel Dean did get injured after 4% of the snaps. And so Benjamin Morrison played 96%. And that kind of wraps up the Bucs, Shawn. The safety position, we still like Tyke Smith over Winfield, don't we?
Yeah. Winfield's been doing better. And I'm a fan of Jacob Parrish in some of my cornerback required leagues, who did get an interception. Not a whole lot of tackles. Again, low snaps this week. So Jacob Parrish is somebody worth streaming here and there. Just check the matchups a little bit.
Yep, a great call out. Let's move to the NFC West. Let's go to the Arizona Cardinals, who played 55 snaps versus the 49ers in a real blowout game. Jonathan Gannon will be also looking for a new role at the end of this year, I fear. Josh Sweat did have another sack, and he had 2 quarterback hits, but nothing else. So I did look it up. So, Shawn, over 9 games, he has 9 sacks. How many tackles do you think he has?
15.
He has 19. Okay. So
it's not a lot. It's sack or bust for him.
It's sack or bust. And if for those that aren't familiar, when you get a sack, that counts as a tackle as well. So if you take out the sacks, he's basically had 10 other tackles in 9 games. That's just one tackle per game. So that is literally sack or bust. So that's kind of what I wanted to illustrate during the show today for folks to kind of get a feel when we talk about sack or bust. And I decided to use Josh Sweat as my guinea pig for that.
That's a good one.
Mac Wilson was put on IR with a rib injury. Cody Simon once again wore the green dot. This was when we were a little bit off, Shawn. We thought Cody Simon would have about 7 tackles, but he had 12 tackles and 55 snaps. So he was pretty productive. On the other hand, Akeem Davis-Gaither, who we also refer to as ADG on his 75% of snaps only had 4 tackles. That's ADG. Walter Nolan was a disruptive force in his first game. He did very little in the second game. In fact, I still remember the announcers saying something in the fourth quarter. Hey, that's the first time we call Walter Nolan's name. And then he got hurt.
Yep.
But he did play in this third game. And he played 42% of the snaps and had 2 tackles, both of which were tackles for loss and a quarterback hit on 55 snaps. Darius Robinson was all the way up from 31% to 60%, but I think, and he had 5 tackles, but that was, I think, the nature of the blowout game. All the defensive tackles were below 50%, so I think Darius Robinson got extra snaps in the blowout. I don't know if we can expect that on a regular basis. Don't chase Darius Robinson's 5 tackles. Dadrian Taylor Demerson missed the game, was inactive due to injury. Garrett Williams, who I really love as a cornerback because he plays that dual outside slot role, but he got hurt yet again. He only played 53% of the snaps. So Denzel Burke replaced him on the outside. Darren Hall replaced him in the slot with Taylor Demerson being inactive because of the injury. We're not chasing any of those guys. Shawn, anything on the Cardinals you want to add?
No, this is a team I've been avoiding just about everywhere. Buda Baker went too high for me back in the drafts, and then Cody Simon, I wasn't able to pick him up anywhere. He's probably the only one I really trust. You're probably playing Baker, maybe Tomlinson, but that's about it, man.
Tomlinson or Thompson?
I may have said Tomlinson. Thompson, Jalen Thompson,
Yeah.
the other safety there. So you're probably playing those two. But with the rotations that they have at defensive tackle and the edge rushers, sack or bust, it's hard to trust anybody else on this team.
And they activated B.J. Ojulari. And so I expect him to start getting some snaps on the edge to try and generate some pass rush. So I think there'll be even more rotation on the edge. Mm-hmm. And so it's hard to play those edge guys for the Cardinals. Let's go to the Rams, whose defense had to play 84 snaps against the Seahawks because after their offense got off to a good start, they couldn't manufacture much against that Seahawks defense. So their defense was on the field quite a bit, was the Rams. 84 snaps is like the equivalent of over 5 quarters of snaps for perspective, folks. That's a lot of snaps.
That's why Devin White had 16 tackles in back-to-back games, because he was playing 80 snaps in back-to-back games.
That is correct, but some of the Rams stats did not play out like the Devin White snaps. So let's talk about that. Jared Verse and Byron Young both played 76%, but yet for the third week in a row, neither one registered a sack. At least Young had 6 tackles. Verse only had 3, and they both got a quarterback hit. Are you starting to get a little bit worried about these two, Shawn?
I think I'm more worried about Verse just because we seen it last year. He didn't have the sacks last year. It was a lot of the tackles and the quarterback hits. Yeah, he could get there. He just couldn't finish the play. So it's more of a trend for him than it is for Young. Young has been pretty good this year, but I'm souring on both right now because this is the wrong time to be getting a cold streak.
Yeah. You probably don't have many better options, so you probably end up playing them. You're going to play them over Dallas Turner. You're going to play them over Miles Murphy. But
give me at least some tackles. Give me some tackles. Give me more.
Give me it's time for some sacks coming up. Now, Nate Landman, if I remember correctly, only missed like 3 snaps of the 84, and he only had 7 tackles. And we're talking about Devin White having 16 earlier. Omar Spates played 64%, but that's almost like a full game when you play 84 snaps. He had 7 tackles. He had just as many as Landman had. So we've joked about Landman Mega Man in some games, or Land Monster Man. This one, he was Land Not
Yeah.
Man.
Land meh.
Yeah, yeah, Land Man. Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Land
Yeah.
Man. Land
Write that
Man.
down. That's a T-shirt coming out soon, guys.
That's a good one. It'll be on sale for Christmas, folks.
Yep, ugly
Okay,
sweater.
with a picture of Shawn and I on the back.
Ooh.
Well, there goes the sales.
Yeah,
Okay, Cam
sorry.
Curl led the team with 11 tackles, which was nice to see a bounce back from him finally. The big news on the secondary, Quentin Lake left with an elbow injury after 38% of the snaps. He's expected to miss time. Surprisingly, Roger McCreary, who they acquired in the trade and we thought we acquired as sort of a slot backup kind of thing for an injury, he didn't play any of the snaps. So I'll put these in notes, Sean, to go through them. Josh Wallace played 32% of the snaps, 74% of the slot. Jalen McCullough, 36% of the snaps, 20% of the slot. Kobe Durant played 18% of his snaps in the slot. And at the cornerback position, they've been doing this rotation with Forbes and Darius Williams and Kobe Durant as well, and even a little bit Jalen McCullough, a little bit on the outside, not much. But boy, if Lake is out,
It's an absolute mess.
yeah, it's a snapapalooza.
Yeah, I really don't understand why you wouldn't put McCreary in. I mean, that's been his bread and butter inside the slot. So maybe that's how it comes out next week, or this coming week. Maybe McCreary does jump in there and take that slot role, but you're still looking at rotations everywhere else.
Yeah, so if I need a cornerback in the deepest of leagues and I got a slot, I might just pick up McCreary and stash him. Now, I didn't put him on the waiver list that we're going to talk about in a little bit here, Sean, but I might take a chance on stashing McCreary. Once again, depending on how long Lake's out. If he's only going to miss 1 week, it's one thing, but it sure sounded like it was going to be a multi-week injury. Let's move to the 49ers. Let's get through these last two teams and we'll get to the waivers here. They played a whopping 79 snaps versus the Cards. Now, this was a massive blowout game, so be careful about snap counts that you draw away. I think I was a jinx because a couple of weeks ago I said something along the lines of the 49ers played another game, and of course they have another significant defensive injury. And then finally last week, I said, believe it or not, the 49ers came out of this past game without a defensive injury. So lo and behold, what happens yesterday? I did the reverse jinx. The 49ers had a big injury on defense, with Tatum Bethune suffering a high ankle sprain after 30% of the snaps. High ankle sprain means he's going to miss several weeks. Curtis Robinson came in for him and played 68% of the snaps, finished with 12 tackles. Curtis Robinson is going to be number one on your waiver wire pickups, folks. So,
Yep.
yeah, thank you for that awesome support with that. Yep.
Yep. I mean, I'm looking at my list of guys here, and Curtis Robinson's at the top of mine easily because we're looking at high ankle sprain, 2 to 4 weeks. I don't expect
Maybe even 4 to 6.
Right. Well, that's what we said about Schwessinger, but he was back after what, 2? So there's a chance, but I'm expecting Bethune out longer than Carson was. So yeah, Curtis Robinson is top guy for me this week.
Now people might see, they're going to look at the stats and they're going to see, oh, wow, Nick Martin had 7 tackles. Holy cow. He played 18% of the snaps. He played them in mop up. Yeah, let all your opponents get all excited. You should talk them up. Tell them Nick Martin is the guy, not Curtis Robinson.
I've never
and
seen
take
a
Curtis
Nick
Robinson.
Martin like him.
Yeah. Nick Martin's one of a kind, folks. Yeah. Sell the Nick Martin to your league mates and you pick up Curtis Robinson, folks. All righty. Not much to talk about at the edge other than Bryce Huff played 72% of the snaps. He's better than Jacob Martin, but he's pretty much a boomer bust guy as well. Jair Brown and Malik Mustafa continue to play the two primary safety roles. Jair Brown was 53% deep. Malik Mustafa was 71% deep. Now, the previous weeks, Brown was 31%, Mustafa was 50%. When you have that big a lead, as we talked about with one of the other teams previously, and it was the Jaguars defense against the Chargers. They're going to play two safeties deep and keep everything in front of them. and let them dink and dunk their way up and down the field and so forth. And I think that's what happened with Brown and Mustafa both playing more deep this particular week. Upton Stout had 7 tackles, 52%. Now, he did something wrong during the game, and I just remember saying, oh, Upton Stout. And Chase Lucas did get a few snaps in there as well, but Stout had 7 tackles as the slot cornerback. The 49ers are on bye in week 14, so whether it be Curtis Robinson, for example, or Brown and Mustafa, or um, some of your offense players like Christian McCaffrey, playing ahead for week 14 for the 49ers being on bye. Let's move to the Seahawks, Shawn, with only 51 snaps against the Rams. As we talked about, the Rams defense was on the field a lot, which means the Seahawks team was not on the field a lot. Ernest Jones returned from injury, played 100% of the snaps, tied for the team lead with 6 tackles. That's going to happen on so few snaps. You basically only played 3/4 of a game. Drake Thomas was the number 2 linebacker, as we suspected. Tyrese Knight did suffer a concussion, but hadn't played any snaps to that point. He got hurt on his special teams. But Drake Thomas played 73% of snaps and had one lousy freaking tackle. Um, one of my sons kept on texting me, "Can't Drake Thomas get a freaking tackle?" And I guess the answer to that is no. Shawn, is Tyrese Knight, assuming he clears from concussion, is he going to leapfrog Drake Thomas after that kind of performance? Or, hey, it was only 51 snaps and the Seahawks defense played good. Drake Thomas is going to stay out there.
Yeah, I think it was very clear when they left him on special teams like that it's Drake Thomas's job. So
Agreed.
no, I'm not worried about. Now, it was Sunday. I was expecting a little bit of rotation there. I expected Jones to get that 100%, which he did. The surprise to me was that Knight got nothing. So on defense.
Right. Now, Nick Monwari played 94% of the snaps, most of that close to the line of scrimmage. Unfortunately, after the big line the week before, only had 3 tackles and 1 pass defense. Once again, it was only on 51 snaps, so we're not holding against it. Devin Witherspoon, 92% of the snaps. He played 66% outside, only 3 tackles. Boy, Witherspoon, I don't know if we can consider him a number 1 cornerback anymore, Shawn. Iman Warrior's taking his role.
Yeah, I know you and I had talked about it. I got no problem dropping Witherspoon for somebody more productive. Nashawn Wright, I would jump on him in a heartbeat. I'm not dropping him for Roger McCreary just yet, something like that. But yeah, somebody else that's playing in the slot, being productive, getting targeted a lot. Yeah, drop Witherspoon. He's not worth holding on to.
Okay. Maybe in dynasty leagues you're keeping him, but redraft you certainly.
Um, yeah, maybe. I don't get too attached to cornerbacks.
Okay, fair
It's once
enough.
a week.
Yeah, that's one thing I got to get over. I do get attached to some of these players. Ty Okeda finished with 6 tackles. Julian Love should be back in the next couple of weeks. So if you've been relying on Okeda, and he has been fairly productive most weeks, just remember that Love is coming back. He will go to the bench. Byron Murphy, we love us some Byron Murphy. He was 88% of the snaps. He played more because they weren't on the field as much, so he got to play a higher percentage of the snaps and did have 5 tackles. Love us some Byron Murphy. We'll talk about him in the waivers. On the edge snaps, granted it was a low snap count, but this was a big divisional game, and that can tell you a lot. DeMarcus Lawrence, 78%, Uchenna Nwosu, 59%, Derek Hall, 37%, Mafe, 33%. That's, I think, what we can expect as we move forward out of these Seahawks. Maybe Nwosu gets a few percentages more, and DeMarcus Lawrence maybe slightly lower given his age, but I think that's what we can expect from the Seahawks edge. Shawn, do you agree with that?
I do. Yeah, I'm right there with you 100%.
All right. Well, that completes the all 32 teams, and as requested, we have added this waiver wire thing to the end. So Shawn will timestamp this one as well.
Gotcha.
Many of these, just a couple of caveats. You have to have a drop. If you don't have a good drop, don't drop them. That's the first thing. Don't drop for them. That's the first thing. If you didn't listen to what we covered earlier when we talked about these players, you may not have the right context. So we're not going to talk about a lot of these in great detail. So go back and listen. Don't just use this list. That is your warning. Okay, with that, let's go to linebacker list. Potential for multiple weeks. Curtis Robinson, Cody Simon, Claudin Charles, Demetrius Flanagan Fowles, Oren Burks, EJ Speed. Shawn, Any of those orders you would change? Is there any of them you'd move higher than where I had those?
I would move Demetrius Flanagan Fowles above Claude and Chairless, but that's just kind of nitpicking. EJC is probably at the bottom for me, uh,
Yeah.
which I believe you had too. So yeah,
Yeah.
Oren Burks is actually moving up a little bit on this list. Chairless, I'm looking at probably just one more week out of these guys because regardless of who comes back, Roseboob or Wallace, Trellis will be that number two at that point.
Yeah, that's a
If the
fair
other
call
is
out. I think you and I have a slightly different assumption in terms of when Wallace and Roseboom will be coming back, and that could be the difference in our rankings there.
yeah, that's fair.
For line for linebackers for potentially one more week, Noah Sewell, Isaiah McDuffie, Ronnie Harrison. That's it. Sewell, if you rank Sewell with the multiple weak linebackers, do you have him under Cody Simon? So it's Robinson, Simon, and Sewell.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
I think so. Just because I
Okay.
know what his floor is, and I feel more solid with him in there.
At defensive tackle, let's go there. Christian Barmore, Byron Murphy, Jalen Carter. Now, some people might say, wow, I wish Christian Barmore or Jalen Carter were available in my leagues.
Yeah, we're trying to
But
cover them all here, guys. So some of the
yeah,
shallower ones and the deeper ones.
exactly. So on defensive tackle required, I did go a little bit different than some of the others when we put this together. And so those are at the top: Barmore, Murphy, Carter. Then you have Walter Nolan. And particularly for Dynasty, a Walter Nolan type. But then you have the Tershawn Whartons, Jalen Redmonds, Zach Harrisons, Keanu Bittens, and don't forget about Adetomowa Adebawore, who's playing the DeForest Buckner role and had a fairly productive game in his first game in which he played in Buckner's absence. By the way, if you didn't hear, Buckner went down to Panama and did some stem cell treatment for his neck. Boy, when you hear that kind of stuff, boy, that's not a good feeling about him potentially coming back. Shawn, anything different on the defensive tackles on that list I just gave you?
Not really, because they're so volatile. It's a hard position to really predict because they are so up and down each week. You're going to get no complaints from me on that.
Okay. At the edge position / defensive end, Nick Skirton and Donovan Izaruku. See, I said it easily that time. I don't know why I was struggling earlier. Jalen Walker, Dallas Turner, if Grenard is out, Miles Murphy, Austin Booker. Is there any of those you like more than any of the others? And, would you put any of these guys over Skirton or Izaruku at the top?
If Dallas Turner is playing, he's probably tops on the list for me.
Okay. Part of the reason I had him down was because, as we talked about earlier, I thought Jonathan Grenard was only going to miss 1 week, and that's why I put him
Sure.
down. So I had him on the list, but that is a fair call out. Turner could jump to the top if Grenard is out, particularly if Turner's going to play 85, 90% of the snaps. Moving to the safety cornerback position, there's a bunch of them. I'm just going to rattle them off with a bunch of cornerbacks down at the end that are in deep, deep leagues. But Chauncey Gardner-Johnson Jr., Jordan Poyer, Dane Belton if Newbin is out, Miles Bryant for 1 week, Malachi Moore and Tony Adams. Then you have your Deron Blands, Brandon Stevens, Jarvis Brownlees, Brandon Echols, Darrell Bakers.
It's pretty much pick your flavor at that point. Dane Belton's probably my top of the list if Newbin is out.
Even over Gardner Johnson.
Even over Gardner Johnson, just because I know Belton is going to give me a lot of tackles every week. And he's done that for no matter the position he's playing on that defense. Even when it was like a 3-man rotation, he was still getting plenty of snaps up near the line of scrimmage. So they're kind of in a similar spot where Gardner Johnson might get me the sack. I know Belton's get me the tackles for sure. So I like the higher floor guys.
All righty. So there's your waiver list, folks. For those that have been asking for it, there it is. But there's all kind of context. Don't drop for these folks if you don't have the right drop. And if you didn't listen to the whole show, you might miss some important context on these guys. So be careful about just picking them up because this is our list that we gave you. Okay. All right. Reminder that we have our weekly start sit show. Almost messed that up, Shawn. This Sunday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central. there is a chance that my man Shawn may be solo, just being real transparent. And I forgot to tell this to Shawn before the show
Yeah, I just
because
found
I've been
out.
invited to an LSU game. And when you go to an LSU night game on Saturday night, Sunday mornings are rough. I'll just leave it at that. You never know what is in the Yeti on a Saturday night in LSU. All righty. So Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central for that. All right. If you like this show, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. We are checking the comments, questions, suggestions that you put on the channel. We've been replying to all of them. Please do so. Give me a follow on Ricky Rod 66, and that is June 6th, my birthday. As a side note, if you want to wish me a birthday, make it a note to send me birthday wishes on June 6th. And you can follow Shawn at 8386.
Not
With
my
that,
birthday.
what's that?
Not my birthday.
Not your birthday. You weren't born in 86?
Yeah, I was born in '86. That's not why it's there, though.
Okay. On that note, we will be back next week. And remember, we record on Tuesday nights. We release on early Wednesday mornings. But with that, on behalf of Shawn Teague, this is Ricky Roderick wishing you, your family, and your friends great health and happiness. Be kind to one another, and we're out of here till next time.